are some of the strongest days we have all year. The proposed limits on the number of events per weekend are particularly concerning. Historically busy days like St. Patrick's Day work because there is more than just a single event. The parade brings people downtown, and multiple street parties keep patrons here. Those layered experiences are what turn visitors into diners and customers. When restaurants make more money, the city makes more money through sales and meals tax. Limiting the number of permits will undermine the atmosphere that makes people stay. This policy risks pricing out many of the events that downtown Roanoke define Roanoke as welcoming, active, and vibrant. As a professional, I worry that if these events disappear, the loss will be felt far beyond a single weekend and will discourage new events that add to the city's outdoor culture and community energy. I'm asking City Council to pause implementation of this policy and actively collaborate with legacy event organizers to meaningfully revise the fee schedule and key policy parameters. As proposed, the policy will have serious negative consequences for events, businesses, and downtown vitality. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Mullen.
Becca Knight, Katie Zawacki,
See Ms. Knight or Ms. Zawacki. So we can go on to the next two.
Stephen Amaki, Amaki. All right. And followed by Virginia Sweet.
Welcome, Mr. Nimache.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of City Council, city staff, and citizens of Roanoke. My name is Stephen Yamiche. I've been a citizen of Roanoke since the summer of 1961. These days, I'm probably best known for founding Friends of Evan Spring, doing training on nonviolence, and organizing work with Pax Christi USA. I'm also the vice president of SCLC, and I'm a supporter of First Fridays and the various eateries in downtown Roanoke. I want to express appreciation for the draft of the apology you plan to extend to the African American community in the city of Roanoke. The acknowledgement of wrongdoing is powerful, largely because it comes with a call to action. Not only is there a duty for you to act in keeping with your words related to the apology, but there is a more pressing crisis at hand. There is a war going on in the streets of the United States of America. We will soon see the evidence of this war in the city of Roanoke if we haven't already. So your call to action becomes one of protecting both citizens and immigrants in the city of Roanoke according to our constitutional rights. As such, I hope you're not just conducting business as usual. There is no usual. Not today, not now. Along with your apology, I urge you to issue a crisis management plan that will keep the people of Roanoke safe. I invite you to work with Friends of Evan Spring not only in preserving the spring, but implementing a plan that speaks to reparative justice, healing, and conciliation from the past, as well as advocacy, safety, and constitutional protections for today. As far as Evan Spring is concerned, we have two basic requests. Scrap the current plan and work with members of the community to develop an appropriate, community-oriented, historically reparative plan. This means members of the community will have a seat at the table as plans are being made. I am glad to hear members of council using the word preserving during this meeting today, because that's exactly what's needed. If there was ever a time for the city and the community to come together for the good of everyone, past, present, and future, that time is now, and with a sense of urgency. I will be back at 7 p.m. to speak more specifically about Evan Spring. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again tonight.
Great.
Welcome, Ms. Sweet.
Greetings, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, all the members of the council, and our City Manager, Ms. Turner. First, thank you, Mayor, and the City Council members who took their valuable time to meet with Friends of Evans Springs and listen to what our vision is. And we look forward to meeting with the City Manager and the Deputy Director of Planning, Development, and Building soon, too. And I really want to thank, we really want to share our vision with, as Stephen said, a nature preserve and a nonprofit community land trust is what we're looking at specifically. Mayor Cobb, thank you especially for ensuring an opportunity for the Friends of Evans Springs to collaborate with the Planning Department on the solution for the public good. Your assurance of a seat at the table is an intangible method of reparative justice. Changing the long-standing tradition of government knows what's best for you people is really the best way that we can have reparative justice. It changes the whole system. And indeed, perhaps not consciously, top-down decision-making affecting Black communities actually perpetuates the continuation of systemic racism. To continue this equitable way of planning that the mayor is affording us through collaboration will bring more decisions for the public good rather than solely looking at the greatest economic return. Evans Springs is the last and largest contiguous area for economic development. But more importantly, Evans Springs is the last and largest contiguous area with desired tree canopy, ecological sensitivity, and an opportunity to preserve a legacy for generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sweet.
Brenda Hale, Richard Fife.
Welcome, Dr. Hale.
Good afternoon,
Hello.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, City Attorney. If I have not said Happy New Year to you already, Happy New Year to everyone here today. I am standing before you bringing greetings from the Roanoke branch in AACP. Our concerns, which we have voiced over 2 decades, is Evans Springs. Tom Kane, I had the good sense to appoint him as our economic development chair. He worked for over a decade on a plan for Evans Springs. His presentation was well researched, well thought out, and we had the blessings of Virginia Tech and other businesses in Roanoke City. It was centered around saving the natural wetlands. I want to remind you that Roanoke City is a blessed city in regards to the fact that you do have wetlands here. I have visited, you know I have military history, I've been all over this country, but every city does not have this. And Tom went to the cities that were of similar size and had natural wetlands. And he brought back exciting news as to what those cities had done with the wetlands. We have continuously asked you, please think about the natural wetlands that we have and what you can do to enhance them. If you enhance it, it is a beautiful thing in so many ways. And I just don't have time to tell you all about the ways today. But it is an economic development. It brings jobs. It brings tourists into this well-established star city of the South. We cannot think about the story of the Talons. We don't want to bury Evans Springs. We don't want it to sit there with nothing happening. We want it to flourish. And when Evans Springs flourishes, all of Roanoke will flourish. Yes, I just got one more thing, please.
All right.
I'll be quick as I can. In this new year, we remain hopeful in 2026 that the right decisions can be made for the right reasons. And together, we must march forward united. And one last thing, please listen to the voices of the members of this city. Please listen to individuals that bring you constructive criticism. And please listen, because by listening, we all benefit for the good of this star city of the South, the All-American City 8 times. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Welcome, Reverend Five.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, Ms. Turner, Mr. Collins. I too am a member of Friends of Evans Spring, have been for a number of years. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt really heard? Have you had conversations with anyone, but can you bring to mind a time in which you felt really heard? They knew you, they knew what was going on, and then you kind of work together for whatever it is you're discussing. I don't know that happens that often, but it does happen. But what I want to convey is kind of built on the last three speakers, something of what they've said, and I suspect you'll hear some more of. There is the sense in the larger community in which people would say that the previous council did not really hear what community was saying about Evans Spring. That's not a single event, but it's happened over a number of decades, a sense in which part of our community at least has felt not heard, not listened to, not understood. I've had occasion to read up on something called community benefits agreements recently. Haven't read a lot, but I've read something. But they are marked by a process in which the community works with the developer, with the municipality, and coming up with a development plan, if you will, for areas of cities. The community has had kind of an equal partnership, and the thing doesn't even exist without the community's input, giving certain things that they require, need, and they're agreeing to support the project because of the support that you've given them. And while we may not use that process exactly here, that's what I'm asking for or suggesting is a valuable one for us to follow. I think I've heard something of the same thing from every speaker today. You know, paying more attention to what the community is trying to tell you. It is very tempting to speak as leaders of the community of this is what we need. This is what you want, though you don't know it. And the community is trying to say some different things, in particular with regard to Evans Spring. We are asking or will ask, I believe it's in line with Councilman Nash's comments, that you rescind the development plan that you adopted or the previous council adopted and work together with us and other community members in developing one that we think will be much better and in accord with the interest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Gill Walker, Sherman Bamford. Bamford.
Don't see Ms. Gill Walker. Is Mr. Bamford here? Here he comes. Welcome.
Members of City Council, thank you for listening. I'm Sherman Bamford, a citizen of Roanoke, and I'm here to urge you to scrap the current plan for Evans Springs and to dedicate yourselves to solving the Evans Springs issue once and for all by coming up with something that is fair and equitable to all and that protects the highest and best use of Evans Springs. Evans Springs is rightfully a natural landmark, a highly important natural landmark in the city of Roanoke. And it should be recognized and ultimately protected as such. There are few other, there were many springs in the city of Roanoke. Currently, there are none that are of this quality in the city of Roanoke. The volume of water flowing from Evans Springs, the rich forested slopes surrounding Evans Springs, and there are a number of acres surrounding Evans Springs that are forested and deserve to be protected as well. I also urge you to deal with the crisis in home affordability in Roanoke as well by welcoming and working with a community land trust. And thank you for your time.
Very much, Mr. Bamford.
Barbara Dirk, Sylvia King.
Welcome, Mr. Irk.
I have copies for you that I'd like to get up there, and so I shall, very safely. Here you go. So this hold up. Let's see. Got that? Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. 2026 is going to be the best year ever. I am Barbara Dirk. I'm coordinator of Connect Now, connecting our neighborhoods, our city, our commonwealth, our country, and our people. That the issues that I need to talk about today are very timely. So, there's bicycle omnibus bill that's in the General Assembly, and if you all agree, I'd like for you to submit this to the Legislative Committee and then to your lobbyists that are in Richmond to support this. We have legislators McNamara and Suderline and Rizal who are in the legislature, and I'd like for them to support you in supporting this. Right now, the city has complete streets and Vision Zero, and I think the addition of these safety measures would be very, very important. The other timely event is the special event that Roanoke City Blue Ridge Bicycle Club supported a mayor's bike ride for 3 years. And that with the extension of the Greenway, I think instead of a mayor bike ride, possessive, that now we can do a mayor's bike ride with the mayor of Salem, Board of Supervisors in Roanoke County, mayor of Roanoke, Virginia, who rides a bicycle, and Red Gross in Benton, who also rides. The timeliness of this is that special events require 120 days submission of application. And if you want something in May, which is Bike Month, then the application needs to be put in right now. The omnibus bike bill that I'd like for you to look at, you should have copies of now in front of you, is basically a safety bill, House Bill 661. And we're on track to get it submitted. First issue is safety yield, which allows a person riding a bicycle and similar low-speed devices to treat a stop sign as a yield sign under limited conditions. And that's already implemented in 11 states, and we think that it would be beneficial in Virginia. Proceeding, well, is that 3 times? So May is Bike Month. I encourage you to support a mayor's bike ride on the Roanoke River Greenway. And our time is now that we need to get the application submitted. The omnibus bicycle bill is a safety-focused update that will reduce crashes involving bicyclists and align Virginia law with proven national best standards. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. King.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to do a personal shout out and just say happy New Year to the City Council for 2026. I believe that you all did a great job in 2025. So therefore, hey, we're going to move on to 26 and do great and marvelous things. I'm going to write about it. But I'm here for the BRAG. What is BRAG? It's the Bus Riders Roanoke Advocate Group. And we have an event. I'm making an announcement. We have an event on February the 4th, 2026. What date is that on? It's on a Wednesday. Where's the location at? It's the 3rd Street main station. And we're going to be in Melrose Market area. And the times is going to be during the peak hours of the day at the that main station, and then the evening in the marketplace. What is, and it's called transit equality. What is transit equality? We just came off of Martin Luther King's birthday, celebrating his holiday. And this is about Rosa Parks, what she did as an individual concerning the buses. And also we want to honor Margie Jumper, who is our very own, okay? She did what Rosa Parks did. She took a stand, and she made her voice heard. And to this day, we are have freedom to ride the bus anywhere we want to, whether we ride it in the front or the back or the middle, okay? So therefore, that's what we're planning on doing. While we are at the station, we're going to be giving out some gifts, food, and drawings that we're going to be doing too, you know. And we're going to give out drawings for the drivers, gifts for the drivers and for the riders. We want to show our appreciation. And as Mayor Cobb's always talks about, we want to do a shout out of love, you know. Love the people, you know. As the people love us, we can love them. Okay? So therefore, if you have any other information that you want to look up on Bragg, hit us up on Facebook, okay? All right, and also too, we want to thank on the behalf of Bragg and the board of Bragg and our president, we want to thank the GRTC for approving, effective today, free bus rides on February the 4th, okay? So we have a lot of people out here, if you want to park your cars and you want to ride the bus to save some money and time, well, participate in the Transit Equality Day, okay? We will really appreciate you all for your participation, okay?
Thank you, Ms. King.
What time is it? What time is the event? Did she say? And our last two speakers. Oh, got more? Got three more. Jane Gabrielle and Emily Casey.
Mayor Joe,
Welcome.
Vice Mayor McGuire, members of council, City Manager Turner, Ms. Boggs, City Attorney, and fellow citizens. I'd like to simply extend an invitation. Just outside these chambers hangs an art exhibit where 30 artists interpret Annie Dillard's Pulitzer Prize winning book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, penned while she was at Hollins College 50 years ago. As each of the artists, including myself, submerged into nature and the creative process, we wrestled with the same truth Dillard discovered, that places like Evans Springs are not empty land, but living texts, sacred, intricate, and irreplaceable. Evans Springs is a rare non-tidal wetland meadow, quietly performing miracles of water filtration, flood mitigation, habitat, tree canopy, and beauty that no big box store can replicate. To replace it is to trade a living prayer for concrete convenience and tax revenue. I urge you to preserve Evans Springs and choose reverence, restraint, and long-term stewardship over short-term development. I ask you to let this meadow wetland remain unpaved, unspoiled, and alive. To choose wonder over erasure and preservation over forgetting. There is a gallery talk this evening at 6 p.m. Please come. Myself and 3 other artists will be talking about our work and the nature discoveries that we made during the journey. Come experience all of the art that celebrates our spiritual connection to nature and our beautiful valley. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Ms. Casey.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Ms. Turner, and members of council. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Emily Casey, and I am with the Roanoke City Council of PTAs and PTSAs. I am here today to voice my opposition to the proposed funding model for the Roanoke City Public Schools. As I understand the policy, RCPS would receive the same funding this year as they received last year, which is $106.9 million. They would also receive 34% of tax revenues that are over what Roanoke City budgeted for in last year's budget. However, if tax revenues are lower than what Roanoke City budgeted for, the city would then decrease the amount provided to RCPS by 34% of that deficit. Per Virginia state law, our superintendent and school board must present a needs-based budget to council for approval. Last year, council did not approve the needs-based budget provided by our superintendent and instead voted for level funding for the schools. That meant that funds stayed the same for the 2025-2026 school year as they were for the 2024-2025 school year. With the proposed funding model, our schools will be funded at that same level as they were 2 years ago, while the needs of our students and schools are continuing to increase. The $106.9 million provided by the city to RCPS does not even reflect the amount that the schools receive from the city, as approximately $17.7 million is already earmarked by the schools to return to the city for our school resource officers, full payment on debt services for school projects, the Local Cost of Children's Services Act, stormwater fees, radio support, and municipal audit services. That is just under 17% of the amount the schools receive that is going to be returned right back to the city. While the agreement for the schools to pay for the resource officers predated the 2011 funding agreement, where the city provides the schools 40% of actual tax revenues, I believe the other items, including full repayment on debt services, were added as either part of the 40% agreement or after that agreement was in place. With the proposed model, Roanoke City will not increase the amount funded to our schools for next year. Schools might receive additional funds if tax revenues are greater than what the city budgeted for this year, but they also might have funds taken away. Meanwhile, RCPS is working to decrease the significant overcrowding in our high schools while planning for the need for a needed third high school. Budget cuts to our middle school students have made them lose tutors and Saturday school. Our elementary students have lost a Spanish program. We cannot continue making cuts to our schools if we want our students in Roanoke City, by extension, to succeed to the best of our ability. Continuing to level fund the schools is effectively continuing to cut school funding. Thank you so much for your time.
Casey.
That was the last speaker on this item. Yes.
Well, thank you to everyone who came out to speak during this section. We have other items coming up that people signed up to speak at, and we will have you speak during those items. Okay? That may provide some clarity because I see people going, well, I signed up. Why aren't you calling my name? So we will call you up during those particular items. So they're within the context of what we're discussing then as well. All right, thank you all. We're going to take a 3-minute recess and then we will resume council business.
You're listening to The World.
A touch warmer tomorrow before cooling back down into the weekend. Your Radio IQ forecast. Clear and very cold tonight as lows plunge into the teens. Some sunshine Wednesday, possibly a shower for far southwest Virginia later on. Winds pick up throughout the day as well. Warmer with highs in the upper 30s to around 50 for the Bristol area. More cloud coverage Wednesday night. A couple of rain and snow showers possible for southwestern Virginia as lows fall into the upper 20s and mid 30s.
After the pomp and ceremony of an inauguration, the work of governing begins for Abigail Spanberger. How will she navigate an energized Democratic majority in the General Assembly, a challenging budget picture, and the Trump administration? Listen to Governor Abigail Spanberger's first address to the General Assembly, Monday night at 7 on Radio IQ.
This is The World. I'm Carolyn Beeler. We are continuing our conversation with David Rennie, the geopolitics editor and a columnist for The Economist. We talked next about whether the decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies seemed far-fetched.
There is a sense in which China is decoupling slowly, and investment flows are slowing down in each direction. But one of the big surprises, to add to the long list of surprises of Trump's second term, is that he doesn't sound like a China hawk in the way that you might have expected, certainly if you think back to his first election campaign in 2016. I was in the States back then. I was our Washington bureau chief. I covered the campaign. I interviewed Donald Trump about China. And back then, if you remember, he was talking about, China stealing all the jobs, and he was going to, this was the biggest theft in history. Now, particularly after China used its rare earths weapon against America last summer and autumn and really intimidated Donald Trump, you see Donald Trump talking about wanting to have a good relationship with China, wanting to do a big, beautiful trade deal with China, and China basically still being bent on self-reliance and not being dependent on an America that they do not trust an inch.
Interesting. I want to turn to Europe now. The relationship between the U.S. and Europe used to be something that you could kind of take for granted, being solid. What does it mean to the world economy that is no longer true?
it is absolutely certainly no longer taken for granted, and it's gone so far beyond American grumbling about NATO members from Europe not spending enough on defense. Because, remember, though, we heard those from people like Barack Obama. This is different. This is new. The idea that Donald Trump is threatening to say that he needs to have Greenland as territory for his own psychological happiness, that he is not content to have American bases in Greenland, which is obviously part of Denmark, European ally in the EU and NATO. He's saying that unless he owns it, it doesn't really count. That you have his cabinet secretaries going out and saying that, even a long lease on Greenland, even bases in places like Europe, doesn't give you real security, because no one is willing to really take care of the security of somewhere if they don't own it. Well, if you are Europe, you're thinking, well, if you're not willing to defend someone unless you own it, what does that mean about all of our expectations about being, home to American bases, being America's security partner?
What does NATO
in the
mean
economic
anymore?
sphere? Yeah. And when the Danish Prime Minister said, if you attack Greenland, that's the end of NATO, I think initially some European partners thought, or maybe that's a bit exaggerated. But I think if you see right now the language coming out of European governments, particularly after Donald Trump threatened to tariff those governments that had sent troops to show kind of that they can secure Greenland against these supposed threats from, Russia and China. I think Europeans are in a very different place this week, even compared to last week. And that has economic consequences. I know that people in the Trump administration like to talk about Europe as old and tired and finished. Europe is still one of the world's richest consumer markets. It's enormously important to big American companies. So when Donald Trump was very first re-elected, I remember some countries in the global south sounding actually quite complacent and even mocking Western liberal democracies like Britain and saying, oh, you're such babies, you thought that America was a good country, you thought that America was benign. We always knew that this is a brutal, transactional, dog-eat-dog world, and we handled Donald Trump just fine in his first presidency, and it'll be fine this time. That was the message from people like diplomats from India around the time that he was being inaugurated a year ago. Now, you go around the world at some of the big players in the global south this time, countries like India, South Africa, and Brazil. The past year has been extraordinarily bruising for them. The Indian leader, Narendra Modi, his supposedly close relationship with Donald Trump did not protect him from being hit with tariffs, with having the humiliation of Donald Trump claiming that he alone stopped what he said was going to be a nuclear war between India and Pakistan when they had one of their regular conflicts and skirmishes. You've seen the South Africans being singled out for extraordinary humiliation, with the president of South Africa humiliated, being accused of practicing white genocide against Afrikaner farmers in the Oval Office on TV. You've seen down in Brazil, you've seen the Brazilians, their relationship with Donald Trump really shaken by Donald Trump's overt support for the former right-wing leader Jair Bolsonaro, who was on trial for attempting to overthrow an election. You're seeing Donald Trump decisively intervening, even in places like Argentina, where American support for the right-wing leader down in Argentina, Javier Milei, probably saved them from a kind of currency implosion a few months ago. And so Donald Trump is actually playing in the global south in a way that people are not expected. And above all, if the story of this presidency, second presidency, is that this year is so much more radical than the last, the first days of this year, 2025, we saw the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, and described as a demonstration that America seeks to have total dominance in the Western Hemisphere. And you see most governments in Latin America very shocked by what just happened. I think in some cases deeply disappointed by what has followed, with the Maduro regime basically remaining in place and America's only interest being in sort of extracting oil profits, but under no doubt that Donald Trump's vision of a kind of 19th century sphere of influence over the whole of the Americas He's not just joking.
David, when we talk about geopolitics, we say things like the post-World War II world order seems to be over. That feels rather final, or at least like a chapter ending. When we talk about economics and how economics works globally, is it more likely to return to some previous state once President Trump is no longer in office?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can be, if you look at narrowly at the economic part of the post-45 global order, America was willing to play pretty rough at certain moments. When Richard Nixon tore up the original agreement to have kind of fixed exchange rates and to use the gold standard to kind of fix global currencies, when the Americans leaned on the Japanese to completely revalue their currency in the Plaza Accord. America has played rough several times since 1945. So the financial economic part of the global order was always somewhat, people were pretty realistic about America pursuing its own interests. But I think what is clearly absolutely over is the global order that really kind of the high point was around the time of the presidency of Bill Clinton or maybe George W. Bush, the time when we were admitting China to the World Trade Organization, where globalization was seen as an unmistakable win for America and American corporations. That the idea that some jobs went to China from America or went to Mexico, but it didn't matter because America was always going to be so far ahead in the next important industry or the next advanced technology that it could afford to let the efficiency and economic efficiency.
Welcome back to the City Council meeting, our 2:00 p.m. session. And at this time, we're going to move on in the agenda to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by members of City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of the items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Within this consent agenda motion, there is one request for a closed meeting from my office to discuss the selection of a city attorney for a term beginning March 1st, 2026, pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 Code of Virginia as amended. And I'll entertain a motion and second to approve the consent agenda.
Move the consent agenda.
Thank you, Council Members Hagan and Volleson. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sanchez-Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the consent agenda is approved. Thank you all. Moving now to our regular agenda, we have no public hearings or petitions and communications, so we will turn to reports of city officers and the city manager. We have a number of briefings, and I'm going to call on our city manager, Ms. Turner, to introduce each briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first briefing will cover a review of the opioid abatement funding and a brief overview of the requests that we received for FY27 funding. This briefing will also cover recommendations for funding and the levels for each applicant. Please allow me to introduce Helen Ferguson to proceed with the briefing.
Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of City Council, Ms. Turner. I'm going to start out by introducing Emma Howard Woods, who's standing here with me. She is our Opioid Response Project Coordinator. She comes to us with a wealth of knowledge about our community's current programming and our needs surrounding recovery efforts, and is not new to our recovery community. She will be working very closely with our grantees to our opioid abatement funding, and she will assist with the technical support needed and be doing their monitoring. She has been a part of this team since the middle of November, and I am very excited to have her. But our goal for today is to give you an update on the city's Opioid Abatement Authority funds. Back in July, I presented to you guys a budget and began discussing the process that we would use to look at funding and put things in place. So if you haven't seen it yet, we launched the website, we launched policies, and hopefully eased the application process for individuals applying for funding through the city. So just a little bit of background. You guys have seen this before, but the Opioid Abatement Authority was established by the Virginia General Assembly in 2021. We often refer to it around here as the OAA. Financial assistance offered through the OAA consists of settlement funds paid by Virginia to Virginia by prescription opioid manufacturers and companies in the prescription opioid distribution network. Each year, funds are allocated to the city of Roanoke. They're known as direct funds or individual funds, and then also gold standard funds and cooperative funds. And then also, the amount of money that we receive decreases over time. And I think that's very important to understand. I think a lot of times people get excited about the amount of money, but what we get allotted each time decreases. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Emma, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the rest of the funding.
Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of council, Ms. Turner. You've probably seen this graph before, but just to give a little bit of context to some of the terminology we'll be using in this report, this is what the settlement funds in Virginia look like. So 15% is going directly to the Commonwealth. We have 30% direct to the cities and counties. If you hear us use just the word direct, that's what this is referring to, this blue. And then the remaining 55% are done through the Opioid Abatement Authority. These are what we have to apply for through that state agency. So of that 55%, 15% is just for individual. Again, that's how we refer to it, as individual projects. We have 35% for partnerships, or we is referred to as cooperative, and then state agency and unrestricted funds. This is a very high-level overview of our fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 projections. So you can see the amount of funds that we have obligated in FY26 in both our direct, individual, and gold standard buckets. Now, gold standard refers to an additional agreement that the city of Roanoke signed on to, where eligible gold standard projects can receive some of that additional incentive fund. So again, like Helen said, the funds are expected to decrease over time. So just to be fiscally responsible, these are our projected maximums for fiscal year 27. Of note, this does not include any tentative proposed cooperative funds, either from direct locality match for other localities or cooperative from the OAA. But you can see we have $205,000 in direct, $115,000 in individual, and $20,000 in gold standard. Pass it back over to Helen for this.
Emma's really good. I still have notes. So you can go to the next slide, Emma. So she's already covered the amount that we have allotted that we're aiming to give away this year. And so on this slide, you will see, well, actually we had 11 applications submitted this year, and we have one carryover project. The carryover project is our Navigator Care Specialist. One of the reasons why that project is carrying over, as you do know, is sometimes it is hard to hire. And so that is one of our cooperative projects that with Roanoke City, Roanoke County, and the city of Salem. And so they have not been able to hire a staff member yet. So we will be carrying that project over to next year. On this slide, in the first column, you will see projects that submitted applications. All the projects are not listed there at this time. The second column shows the total request. As you can see, it is $2 million, which is more than what we have to give away. We also did a risk assessment of each application that came in. So we looked at different things such as, was the ask over $100,000? Are there capital requests in the ask? We also looked at how are they in good standing with other programs, if they're getting funding from other programs in the city. And yeah, so those are the main things that we looked at. And so you can see each application's risk score. There is, the next columns show what we are actually looking at and funding them or recommending that we fund them at. And so the direct column shows our direct funding, individual shows the amount of individual funding we would like to give out, and then cooperative is what we would put in request to the state for cooperative funding. The ones with stars are eligible for our gold standard funds, which we have looked specifically at those projects. As MS stated, they meet the special qualifications to receive the special funding designated as gold standard.
All right. About to say, the only thing that I'll add in here is these are organized based on their score from our review committee. So from top to bottom, this is where they placed in that score. And then moving forward, I'm going to go over sort of a little bit of what each of these projects is. And on the following slides, they are also still in order. So these are broken down by renewal status and then type of award. So these are our individual renewals that we're proposing. So first, we have Family Service of Roanoke Valley Positive Youth Development Program. So this provides prevention education in the Roanoke City schools. We are proposing totally funding at $69,491. This is through Gold Standard and individual funds. And then we also have the Certified Peer Recovery Specialist with Blue Ridge Behavioral Health Care. That puts a peer in the Roanoke City Adult Detention Center that provides peer recovery resources and education for residents in the detention center. We propose funding at $26,050, again through OAA Individual and Gold Standard. So we have 4 projects that we recommend renewals for cooperative projects. So first we have the Grove on Patterson, which is a residential substance use treatment center for pregnant and newly parenting women. This is cooperative with Roanoke County, and we propose funding at $211,581, again through cooperative, direct match, and then direct from the other localities. I'll note on all of these cooperatives, we haven't had final numbers from those matching localities yet, so these are still subject to change a little, but this is just a tentative idea. Four Trues Recovery Housing with Four Trues Recovery, which is a comprehensive peer support approach. We recommend funding at $142,563, and this is cooperative with Roanoke County, Botetourt County, and the City of Salem. Continuing on in our cooperative renewals, we have the Roanoke Valley Collective Response, which is a regional framework for substance use response in the greater Roanoke region. We recommend funding at $280,414. This is cooperative with Roanoke County. And lastly, in this category, we have the Harm Reduction Roanoke Valley with the Harm Reduction Coalition. We recommend funding at $75,628, and again, this is cooperative with Roanoke County. We have one project that we recommend for new individual funds, which is the Roanoke Area Ministries Opioid Abatement Program that provides on-site addiction, mental health, and general resources in a new facility. We recommend funding at $71,183, again through direct and individual distributions. And then we recommend 2 projects for new cooperative. That is the support for the Bradley Free Clinic's HOPE Initiative. If you're not familiar with the HOPE Initiative, they are a peer-centered resource navigation for people that are looking to achieve recovery. We recommend funding at $196,908, and this is cooperative with Roanoke County and the City of Salem. And then we have On Our Own of Roanoke Valley, which provides wellness and community for people experiencing substance use disorders and mental health crises. We recommend funding at $81,644, again, with Roanoke County. And like Helen said, we also have one carryover. This is that carryover project. This is the Navigator Care Specialist with the Department of Social Services. It promotes family reunification for families experiencing substance use disorders. Due to hiring challenges, they haven't been able to fill that role yet, so we are proposing carrying over their fiscal year 26 funding to FY 27. Back over to you.
So I will start off before I cover these last final notes is that this was not an easy feat for us this year. Funding was tight. I will say that we tried to pick review committees that involve most of our community members. We did have a couple staff members that reviewed to add more technical aspects so they could review it more from a grant perspective. Emma and I were not reviewers of the applications. And this was really challenging, especially considering all the turmoil, especially when you consider what happened last week with SAMHSA and the calling of funding. Our recommendation right now is that we have 6 projects that we are currently funding that we would continue funding. We would add 3 new funded projects. We would continue the one carryover for a total of 10 projects that would be funded for a total regional impact of $1.3 million. The city match that's listed here would come out of our direct funding, and then we would be asking the Opioid Abatement Authority for funding, which is technically funding. Some of that's already been allocated to us, but we have to apply for $804,000 to make these projects successful. And so at this point, we will ask if you guys have any questions. We will do our best. Emma obviously is a little more well-versed on the actual projects, and I tried to stay this year, since I was heavy in it last year, I tried to stay a little bit further away so the individuals had someone they could come to if they had a concern.
Well, first of all, Ms. Howard, welcome. Thank you for taking on this role. And Helen, thank you for your ongoing work with all of our grants. We appreciate it. Questions, comments from council? Ms. Powers.
Yeah, thank you for this information. I do have a question. So for the programs that you are funding, do you get feedback from them of how they're using these funds? Or they're seeing positive results from this?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that I'm sort of starting fresh with as I've moved into this position. So we are starting some sort of monthly reporting. We're starting to discuss how we'll do our annual monitoring for all of these programs. So there has been a little bit of that, but it hasn't been as formal as it will be moving forward. So here shortly, we're going to start getting some of those monthly reports in from these agencies that are currently funded to see how they're using the funds, see what issues they have.
And will you be sharing that with the council just so that we know what the results are? I'd like to see the results of
Absolutely.
how we're spending this money.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And I can also share, as we were on a call last week with the state, most localities are still in the work of putting together a process. Before Emma started, I had started a process. I was like, I don't know if it's going to work, and Emma has definitely refined it. And so just excited to get the ball rolling so that we can really begin what we call monitoring the agencies receiving the money.
Very much, and thank you for your work.
Mr. Nash.
When, excuse me, sorry. When will we know how much other localities are going to be contributing? And then also, second part to that question, do other localities have something similar, like Roanoke County, Salem, Botetourt, do they have something similar that they're doing that we're also working in collaboration with them on that's based in their localities?
So the first answer to that is Roanoke County, we've been in heavy conversation with them. They are going to their board of supervisors, I believe their first meeting in February, so we should know pretty quickly from them. We're still working with Salem and Botetourt to nail down the exact numbers for them. So the goal for us is to have it by that second week in February. As far as we are known as a fiscal agent with that cooperative agreement. Right now, unfortunately in our area, we are the main ones working as a fiscal agent. Roanoke County does have a strong individual program. They do give out their funding as an individual, but right now we are the main ones operating as a fiscal agent.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Helen and Emma, for the presentation. Welcome, Emma. I just had a quick clarifying question. There were, you said, not 11 applications and then 9 recommendations for funding plus the 1 carryover. Are the other 2, did they not qualify, or did they withdraw? And you don't have to name them, but I was just curious, it just didn't work out?
Talk about the review
Yeah,
committees.
absolutely. So all of our applications were scored. We had 3 community members, 1 non-affiliated city staff, 1 subject matter expert, and then a risk assessment that went into their total score. Because the total funding request we have was so much larger than the amount of funding that we had available to give, the bottom 2 we did not recommend for funding. So they simply had the lowest score of that review committee, and that's why they were not included in the recommendation.
I was curious about that.
Questions? Well, I know that we have some agencies here that with or without this funding are doing this work. And I think it's important to recognize them. So if you are one of these agencies or just generally doing some of this opioid abatement work in the community, would you all please stand so we can recognize you and thank you? We have Bradley Free Clinic, the Roanoke Valley Collective Response, For Truth Recovery, and Virginia Harm Reduction Coalition. So thank you all. All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Ms. Turner, our next briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Ross Campbell, who serves as the Director of our Public Works Department. He will be discussing the increasing demand for street closures related to special events and the city's plans to adjust traffic control operations. These changes are intended to balance resources while ensuring special events continue to be an important part of what makes Roanoke a great place to live, work, play. I'll turn it over to Mr.
Welcome, Mr. Campbell. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. So good to be before you. As Ms. Turner mentioned, there is absolutely an increasing demand, but I first wanted to start off with special events are what makes Roanoke, Roanoke. They are part of the fabric of our community, and it's what makes us a great place to live, work, and play. It's part of the reason why I chose to make Roanoke my home. As we come before you today, we are not seeking approval, but rather guidance in the continuation of many conversations we've had with event organizers surrounding special events. The number of special events has increased at an exponential rate since 2025. We are up nearly 40%, and that is over all pre-COVID years. So some key points with that. Nearly 45% of those special events involve some level of street closure. During our peak season, which runs from May to October, we may have up to 5 street closures per week, which usually occur all in one weekend. This often leaves us in the difficult situation of not having sufficient materials or labor resources to accommodate all those who apply for special event permits. These special events and street closures have been previously provided at no cost to event organizers, or most event organizers. Some, due to these limited resources, have had to pay for their closures. We are on an unstable trajectory with increasing risk. The world is not the same place it was 20 years ago. We have to allow for the reality of what happens sometimes with events that happen in the streets. We see that in the news, not only here in the United States, but around the world. It's also increasing staff workload, which has affected the ability to take care of other areas of the city, including putting critical paint markings down on our city streets and replacing city signs. It has also had budgetary impacts on the city. While we are still closing out the books on 2025, we estimate that we have spent in excess of $200,000 on traffic control alone for special events. This does not include the cost of public safety, which does increase when an event is held in the street. So as we continue these conversations and move forward into 2026, we have put together a special events guide that is based upon best practices of not only national standards, but our community or our surrounding regional partners. Some of the items included in this follow what we have seen in Lynchburg, what we have seen in Charlotte, what we have seen in Raleigh. And it's really meant as an informational tool that will help with event organizers where they want to apply for a special event. It's including the process, application deadlines, which are set by city code, by event type, and it describes the types of events, as well as examples of supporting documents required for permits, such as site maps, certificates of insurance, as well as a number of frequently asked questions. As mentioned by many that have spoken, there are going to need to be some limitations as we move forward to manage or balance resources, both in material and labor, along with traffic access to our community and balance event space. As displayed in the blue box, some of these limitations or suggested limitations include no more than one race or walk in the same geographic area on the same day, consecutive days, or consecutive weekends. There has been some discussion about tiers. So tiers are risk-based and consider traffic volumes, closure length, and crowd density. But in short, a Tier 3 event would be considered as one that takes up multiple city blocks. A Tier 2 event would be considered an event that takes up a single city block. And a Tier 1 would be considered a small residential block party. Again, this is risk-based as well as the traffic control. As we move forward in these conversations we intend to have with event organizers, we have made some adjustments to our street closure policies with regard to traffic control devices that are risk-based and will aid in reducing cost associated with street closures. So citywide, some of the limitations would be based upon large events, medium events, and small events, or Tier 3, Tier 2, and Tier 1. Additionally, citywide, we would look at a limitation that would limit potentially one race citywide of 10K greater per weekend. And additionally, following the same policy that has been in place for years, the city greenway system is divided into 4 sections with a maximum of 2 events per section per month. Fees associated with special events or being proposed very much follow our neighbors here in the region, including Lynchburg and Raleigh. There has been no fee for applying for a special event, and that would be the recommendation moving forward. Event organizers may be responsible for city services provided for their event. This might mean paying for public works to close streets or police officers to provide security. An estimate for breakdown in tiers 1, 2, and 3 is provided on the slide, but in reality is based upon the actual requirements for traffic control with that event space. A tier 2 event held on one block is going to have very different risk associated with it comparative to another block. Think of closing down Franklin Avenue comparative to closing down a single block in a neighborhood. Very different risk base and very much different traffic control devices. And so this is looking at real cost recovery. As we have heard, there is concern about the cost recovery model and how we might consider the exemptions. The first I'd like to start with is our neighborhood block parties. There is a recommendation in the policy to have 2 block parties per neighborhood per year that are requested through a recognized neighborhood association at no cost. Additionally, events that satisfy 4 or more criteria would be considered for an exemption. Those include free and open to the public, spectator-driven, where attendance is primarily provided by spectators, tourism-oriented, which draws visitors far beyond the immediate local area and increases revenues through our hotel and tourism activity. Additionally, economic impact would be looked at as economic activity beyond a local event footprint. A 5th criteria would be reoccurring annual events, fixed dates, and those that are in good standing. And then official memorial or civic commemoration events. Even events that have an exemption may still be responsible for direct out-of-pocket costs. That is, if the city has to rent additional barricades or if there's additional public safety personnel that are required to staff that event in the street. Moving forward, as we understand, this is a difficult conversation and has many implications on event organizers, particularly our legacy event organizers. We intend to move forward here over the next 60 days and having conversations with them about their particular event and how the risk-based policy may apply to them. Once we have had those conversations, we intend to take the draft guide, which is included with this policy, make updates, and bring it forward for publishing, along with looking at updating the fee compendium to reflect the changes. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for the overview. And I'm going to open this up for questions from council. Oh, this way? I can start either way. Ms. Sanchez-Jones, we'll start with you.
Thank you for the presentation. Mr. Campbell, I would like to know which examples do you have of events that are falling into tier 3, 2, and 1 so far?
So that, that's a hard thing to do because again, it's based upon a risk-based, but just looking at a multi-block, you would be looking at, for example, a Go Fest or a Dickens of a Christmas. And then there are several examples that came here forward today that may consider a single block type model. First Fridays would be one that would be more a tier 2 type event, whereas a single city block. And then a tier 1 would be anything else, most likely neighborhood block parties.
Ones will be our legacy events.
I am happy to provide that through Ms. Turner.
Okay.
There are a number, and I don't want to make.
Okay.
I want to make sure I don't miss one of them here
Okay.
from the podium.
Thank you.
Question.
Ms. Powers?
Thank you. And have you identified which of the special events would get the waiver? I didn't see that in anything unless I missed it.
Again, I'm happy to provide that because I don't want to forget or miss somebody here from the podium.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Bollison.
Mr. Campbell, what is the, says that you're meeting with legacy event organizers. What does that look like? Are there going to be any public meetings or is it going to be just with those
took my question.
I gave it to him because he's my favorite.
Okay.
Great minds, Nick.
Yeah, I know, right?
So again, coming before the council today to get the guidance on that, but as each of these events is unique in its own right, and the risk-based policies and how we approach that is going to be unique to that particular event, it makes the most sense to meet with them individually as those conversations can be more fluid and directed at their specific event and allow those conversations to happen naturally. And so we intend to reach out to them on a one-on-one basis.
The thing that I'm kind of intrigued about is the medium size, and we had the owner of Martin's and the owner of Sidewinders here, and how are we going to reach those folks that have events that are not necessarily legacy events to hear about what they are feeling on these as well?
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, we have taken notes on those that spoke, and we'll reach out to them.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hagan. I'll come back to you.
How long till this policy would be actually implemented? Would it be take place at the 60-day mark? One of the concerns I have is those nonprofits, businesses that have already started planning for things this year, and that we're suddenly pulling out the rug from underneath them about that possible.
So again, this is moving forward over the next 60 days is to continue to have those conversations or begin those conversations with the guidance that we received from council here today. And so it's not an adoption here in 60 days, it's those conversations.
Okay.
And
It would have to come back before
has to
us.
come back,
Yeah.
Sure that. All right, Ms. Powers.
So just to make sure I understand, so anything that would get approved, those fees would not go into effect till July 1 of 26 with the new budget, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Nash.
When it comes to the multi events, when I was looking at this over the course of the weekend and kind of thinking about it, and of course I was like all of us receiving just a few emails from event organizers. One of the ideas and concerns voiced by them that I also kind of share is our ability internally to process and handle all of these various permits that are going to be submitted our way, and doing it in an accountable fashion, but also perhaps rethinking the process for the events like First Fridays. I've never attended one of those. Nails on my list to attend when they begin. But, an event where there's several of them or a series of them, and they're using the exact same layout each time, but to put something in place where we know and they sign something committing not to change the layout, we approve it, and they still have to go through some sort of a process for submitting for a permit, but it's not like they're submitting, if it's 4 or 5 events, they're submitting 4 or 5 permits, just to cut down one on the amount of work that city staff has to do, but also make their lives a little easier as well with the amount of paperwork they have to continuously fill out and fill out.
I certainly understand that perspective.
Mr. Campbell, I'm sorry. Can I interject just a moment? The challenge that we have is that we don't have a separate special events section. So every special event that we do is done by staff in another division, specifically our sign and signal division. Mr. Campbell mentioned a few minutes ago, we are behind in striping some of our roads and our signs because the number of events have grown exponentially. And it boils down to staffing and cost. Cost is a real issue, and we want to ensure safety. We do not have the staff to keep up with the number of events that we receive. And that is a challenge for us. So even if they're saying that it's going to be the same every single time, staff still has to go out. And we have had events where I think we have how many? 33 barriers?
We have 33 barriers.
We have 33 barriers. We've had events that needed more barriers that we have incurred the costs. Well, we have had to go out and rent additional barriers. It's not sustainable.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, when you throw out that number of 200, you haven't closed out fully from the previous year, but I mean, us coming out of pocket $200,000 roughly, we'll see what it boils down to. And I think through this process and over the next 60 days of talking with event organizers and community members, it's going to be imperative to have the conversation, because those that came up here and expressed their concerns about their bottom line in their pockets with having to pay that expense, we've been paying it, and it's at a point where it's affecting our pockets and our bottom line. But more than that, because money is money, money comes and goes. More than that, it's impacting our ability as a city to function well and provide adequate services in an efficient manner to our citizens that pay taxes for those services. So the next 60 days is going to be a big deal, but I just want to make sure we're thinking about ways that we're still addressing the concerns that we have on our side, but still working in a way that is, I guess, complementary in working with those event organizers, just to make it easy as possible on both sides whenever we can.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. And Ms. Turner is absolutely correct. I mean, whether it's one permit application for 5 events or 5 individual permit applications, the work is the work. What we've seen on a national standard, and again, looking just at a liability, and I don't want to speak as a liability, but looking at a national standard and best practices, single event permits for a multitude of reasons is where nationally special events are going, and we're following where our peers in other cities and localities are going on that policy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I had a couple questions. The $200,000 was the estimate for what the staff time cost last year for putting up the barriers. Is that right?
It's staff time and materials. So as Ms. Turner mentioned, we did have to go out of pocket on additional barricades on a few events.
Do we have any information on what the economic development benefits are to the city for all of these events? It costs money sometimes to make money. So I hear what you're saying is that there is not a team for this. And so if I were you, I would also, if I were in your shoes, feel some tension about, your staff being called to do this if you don't have the staff capacity or the budget for it. But I appreciated hearing you say that these events are part of what make Roanoke special. My fear is that I would be supportive of pausing this based off of the concerns that some of our event organizers and small businesses brought forward today. My fear is that we could save $200,000, but then what would we be losing if some of these large events started falling off in terms of direct economic benefits and taxes to us, but then also just the vibrancy of downtown, which we are also talking about is not where we would like it to be. And so I sympathize. What I hear you saying is that what we're doing is not working. And I think that council should talk about maybe what are some other ways to make it work. And I think that we have to be creative and flexible and compromise. And that goes both ways, us and the organizers. There are a lot of folks interested in more car-free areas in the city. So if we could think about parts of downtown where we know we're going to have lots of events on a regular basis, we could be dedicating parts of downtown, putting in bollards that raise up and down that don't require bringing in the anti-vehicle barriers. We could use vehicles, other city vehicles, to block off streets as barriers. And then some of these events, maybe they could compromise. Some of the neighborhood block parties could be in a park, or, it doesn't always have to shut down a street. But the anti-vehicle barriers, from what I understand, are extremely staff intensive. That takes 2 staff, 5 visits to put each one up. So it seems like part of the problem is using that technology so heavily. Maybe there are workarounds that we could find other ways to uphold the same levels of safety without incurring such huge expenses. So I appreciate the presentation and your work on it, and I hear the dilemma that we're in. I'm just afraid that if we stamp out some of these events effectively through this updated policy, that it'll cost us more than what we're paying to execute the events in the first place.
So, again, a lot to unpack there, and we'll work with the manager's office to talk through the economic impact with you on that specifically. Just addressing, the anti-vehicle barricade use in and of themselves. Again, a lot of flexibility on that, and some of the evolution as we've been working with special event specialists throughout the nation. Moving forward into 2026, there is going to be some changes on that are really reflecting some of the risk-based discussions that we've heard from the event organizers today. And so that's, again, the intended part of the conversations that will happen here over the next 60 days.
Questions? Well, I want to thank you. I have a couple of reflections to share. We've talked a little bit about the different types of barriers and what seems to be a national best practice in terms of safety. I still think, there's some work to be done on exploring those options and maybe a combination of those things. We certainly have a better understanding of the costs involved. I think ultimately, there's this combination of wanting to make the permitting process as smooth as possible. A lot of these larger events are planning a year in advance, sometimes more than that, to have things in place. And I think the last thing any of us want is a process that's not clear and effective. I appreciate that you all have done really important work here, and you've reached out to special events professionals, throughout the country and other cities. I would also argue that we have some pretty extraordinary local special events organizers that have been doing this a very long time. And I would have preferred personally that we had had some of these community meetings with legacy events earlier rather than later. But we're here. And I appreciate that going forward, we're going to have these conversations. I would like to recommend that we do a both and. I think there's merit in meeting and talking with each of the event planners individually, because I think each event has some unique aspects to it. But I think when we have, especially some of the large legacy event people gathered together, as we've heard today, there are a lot of insights that could be helpful to us in thinking through these options. And everyone I heard today said very clearly, the nuggets that are in here about safety, about reducing time for city staff, about being responsible, and acknowledging the costs, both to the city and to the organizing events. So I guess I'm really thinking about this through a process lens. And I would recommend consensus from council that as you're planning these out, that we do a both and approach. I think there's some collective wisdom that could be very helpful, and there's some individual wisdom that can be helpful. And I think there's a good framework here, a really positive framework that I think can be adapted so that we have more of a comprehensive approach that includes that critical engagement from organizers who've been doing the work here for a very long time. And I think certainly can talk about the realities of how even their plans have changed because of what we're seeing around the nation, particularly in regard to safety. So that's really what I wanted to share as we go into this process. I would feel better as mayor, and I think we would feel better as a council when this comes back to us, that we've had a really comprehensive, in-depth review of this. And like I said, again, Ross, you and your team, thank you for your great work on this and the framework of this and identifying the city's challenges.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, thank you all. Thank you again, Ross. All right, I think we have, looks like we got a couple more. Budget, and then parking.
Yes.
We're covering all the bases today.
Yeah,
We got it
all
all
of it.
today. So, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and members of City Council, this is the first briefing for the FY 2027 budget. And I want to make sure that as I state, this is the first. In November, we engaged with council in an informal conversation during a budget retreat. And we focus on budget development and financial planning. The budget retreat focused on current physical environment. Council heard from PFM consultant who analyzed our current financial conditions and projected future performance. We also talked about our current revenue and expenditure performance, key expenditure issues, and expenditure considerations. We also talked about tax rates and primary charges for services. We talked a little bit about the capital improvement program, where we discussed having to recalibrate and make some significant changes in that program. Again, today is the first of several briefings associated with the FY 2027 budget development as we focus on working towards presenting a recommended budget to City Council in March. Each budget development cycle, as you are aware, has its own set of challenges, and this year will be no different. Today, we're going to focus on providing information on the initial revenue projections, providing information on the initial balancing status, giving anticipated revenue and identified incremental expenditures. We'll be reviewing the budget development timeline as well. We encourage you throughout this process to ask questions. As we did last year, we will set up the email address. So if you have questions specifically, you can send us those questions. We'll respond to them and also publish them to increase transparency. The economic uncertainty of our federal and state level funding, it does cascade down to local government. Moderate and in some cases, less than moderate growth in our revenue sources. While not impacting the FY 2027 budget, also the meals tax sunset adds a future uncertainty and will impact funding associated to the operating budget and used to service debt for deferred capital maintenance. Financial resources, quite frankly, will not be sufficient to address some of our priorities. Programmatic expectations will need to be adjusted from the standpoint of current level service and funding new priorities. Before we begin reviewing revenue and expenditure information, please remember this, again, this is the first budget briefing. The information presented is preliminary and will be updated up until the time of the recommended budget is presented. So now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Kasecki, our budget manager, who will go over the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. So I'd like to start off with the fiscal year 27 revenue summary increase. So before we get started, we are focusing on three key areas for today's presentation. Starting off with our general property taxes, where we'll look at our real estate for both current and delinquent. We'll also look at our personal property for both current and delinquent on a high level. If you recall, Mr. Bratton has already presented the assessment values at approximately 6.55%. So that is what we are using for our assumption. We'll also look at our intergovernmental taxes, where we look at state funding for the Department of Social Services. And these are primarily broken down by the expenditure side. For example, your residential care, your foster care services, as well as your alternative private day. Under intergovernmental, we're also looking at state funding from VDOT that is expected to increase for street maintenance. And last but not least, we'll also focus on your other local taxes, where we look at our trust taxes, such as the meals tax. We'll also look at your transient occupancy, as well as looking at your sales tax, where we're anticipating moderate to less than moderate growth in some of those revenue sources, and you'll notice that we do have some downward adjustments. So starting off with fiscal year 26-27 revenue projections by category. So in the first line there, you have your general property taxes projected to increase by 9.43 million, which is approximately 5.21%. Other local taxes is a decrease of 4,029,249, which is approximately a decrease of 3.87%. For permits, fees, and licenses, as well as fines and forfeitures, we're expecting an incremental growth of less than 0.01%. We also have a revenue use of money and property increasing by 33,900, approximately 1.03%. For intergovernmental, I already mentioned VDOT and Department of Social Services, but also we have our comp board adjustment. So approximately 7.15 million, which is a 7.57%. Charges for services increasing by 287,300. If you recall, last year we increased our fire EMS fees, and a portion of that is attributed to that increase. and that's approximately 1.36%. Last but not least, we have an other category where we're looking at revenues from tax sales, for example, purchase card rebate, as well as the city's wellness reimbursement. So total fiscal year 2027 projection, $420,566,000, which is a $12.833 million increase. So in the next couple of slides, we'd like to cover the areas that I mentioned in the summary, starting off with your general property taxes. Real estate tax current is projected to increase by approximately 7.67%, which is $9.94 million. For delinquent taxes for real estate tax, however, there is a downward adjustment of $1 million, which is approximately a 14.89%. And this is due to the inconsistency in our delinquent taxes. And as we go through the different slides, you'll notice on different areas, we've taken that assumption as well. Personal property current is expected to decrease by 1.665 million, which is approximately 5.99%. However, for our personal property delinquent is remaining flat. So just a note, in fiscal year 25, current personal property tax did underperform when compared to the budget. And just to note that for real estate and personal property, we've been heavily reliant on delinquent taxes. Public Service Corp, $556,000, which is approximately 8.06%. And for our district taxes, focusing on your downtown and your Williamson, a decrease of $141,300, which is a decrease of 10.58%. And then in the other category, a projected budget is $4.58 million, which includes, but not limited to, revenue from interest, penalties, and short-term rental tax. So giving us our total for general property taxes, $9.431 million, approximately a 5.21% increase from last fiscal year. So for other local taxes, we recognize that there is a decrease of $4,029,249. Starting off with our sales tax, if you recall from our November 8th presentation, as Ms. Turner already mentioned, we recognize that some of our bellwether taxes, such as your sales tax, your real estate, and your personal property, were starting to turn downwards. And if you recognize fiscal year 2025, sales tax underperformed when compared to the budget by approximately 1 to 2%. So that adjustment for fiscal year 27 is to play catch up as we recognize the month-to-month reviews and monthly report that Ms. Harris will be presenting. Prepared food and beverage. For current, we're expecting an increase of $640,000, which is a 3% increase. While we did increase the meals tax last year by percent, our delinquent taxes have been underperforming. For example, in fiscal year 25, delinquent taxes were 1.8 million with a budget, as you can see, of 5 million. And that shows the inconsistency in our delinquent taxes. Transient occupancy, similarly to our prepared food and beverage. Currently, at the first pass, we're leaving it flat because the month-to-month reports that we've been receiving haven't shown that much of a growth. However, for our transient occupancy, for our delinquents, similarly to our prepared food and beverage, they've been underperforming when compared to what we've been projecting. Primarily, again, fluctuating from fiscal year 23 over 800,000 and decreasing to 66,000 in fiscal year 25. Business licenses expected to increase by 176,000, which is 1.04%. Motor vehicle license, a downward adjustment of 180,100, which is approximately a decrease of 5.49%. For current electric service through the AEP, we are downward adjusting that one by 237,000. Again, this is based on what the rates are and what we've been noticing for month to month and the 5-year trend as well, which is a 4.02% decrease. Communications tax currently remaining flat. And then for our other category, these are revenues not limited to revenues from bank stock taxes, cigarette stamps sold, water utility tax, for example. Total other local taxes, as I mentioned before, this is a decrease of $4,029,249, which is a decrease of 3.87%. So last but not least, we also wanted to cover our intergovernmental taxes. As I mentioned, VDOT reimbursement is expected to increase by 1.5 million, and this will be attributed to our expenditure side, which is 100% reimbursable. Social services, I mentioned that it is programmatic driven, and that's approximately at 5.1 million, which is 11.64%. Comp board adjustments, which includes sheriff, Commonwealth attorney, treasurer, and commissioner of revenue, that's approximately $1 million increase with a 5.23%. And in the other category, revenues from rental car tax, for example, E911 wireless, public facilities tax, and the personal property PPTR8 tax relief, which has been the same at $8,076,000. And that is a decrease of $466,450. Total intergovernmental taxes, as I mentioned in the category, $7,150,000, which is approximately 7.57%. Before moving forward to our preliminary balancing status, I'd like to invite Ms. Turner for some opening comments.
So as we get into our revenue, I wanted to say that it's important to note that while current revenue growth is projected to be 12.8 million, only 6.2 million is available to address priorities after discounting the revenue that is dedicated to a specific program. So social services and VDOT street maintenance. Remember when we met, those funds come out because it's on both the revenue and the expenditure side. From the expenditure standpoint, we asked our department directors and division managers to submit requests which reflect identified needs. All the expenditure requests will be scrubbed to facilitate budget balancing. So what we're about to go over is basically unscrubbed. So, as we met with each of you, we kind of walked you through that process, and we are still working on what that looks like.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. So to kick off our balancing status, I've just reviewed the revenue adjustment, which is 12.833 million. And as Ms. Turner has already mentioned, social services and VDOT is already accounted for. So that leaves 6.22 million to address all the other expenditure needs that are not tied to our transportation division and our Department of Social Services. Starting off with a compensation package, retirement contribution rate is increasing from 21.14 to 22%, and that's approximately 822,000. Medical and dental increase, 1.56 million. Last year, we began an initiative to increase all the employees below the 42,000 to the 42,000 mark. And this year, we're actually completing that initiative by also including the vacancies. So moving the vacancies to 42, that's 504,000. Public safety step plan, 1.269 million, which includes fire, sheriff, and police, moving to the next step. We also have a 3% proposed increase, which includes the remaining staff that are below the 42 mark. That is a 2.273 million. We're also decreasing our lapse by $1 million, and that is our vacancy savings. When Ms. Turner arrived, we had our vacancy savings at 6.5 million. For fiscal year 26, we decreased it by $500,000. And for fiscal year 27, the goal is to decrease it further by a further $1 million, which would take us to $5 million. We've also had some mid-year adjustments, primarily to our benefits program specialists, and this is due to the caseloads that they've had in the Department of Social Services. If you recall, you approved 4 new council-approved positions, and those are included in the mid-year adjustments of 1.123 million. Last but not least, we have a 27th pay period that we have to account for. This happens every 8 to 10 years, and it is scheduled to be in the next fiscal year, July 1, 2027. And that is $1 million. Total compensation package is 9.554 million. Moving on to the other expenditure requests, as Ms. Turner has already mentioned, departments have submitted requests. Budget committee is reviewing those. Starting off with additional personnel requests, this similar to what Department of Social Services have done. Departments have identified needs within their personnel. And this also includes those positions that are in the grants, for example, your Safer Grants and Safer Communities, that will phase out in the next year or two. That's approximately 4.3 million. Our CPS share, 751,000, in addition to the 106.9 million. VDOT and social services reimbursement, as we mentioned, what we do for the revenue side, we have to do for the expense side. Technology maintenance contracts, 1.34 million. Overtime and temporary wages, approximately 2 million. All other department requests, 5.645 million. And we also have contractual and fees for professional services, and this includes your medical and your food contract for the sheriff's office, but also outsourcing costs for solid waste and your Parks and Recreation division. Debt service and outside agencies currently pending. As we go through our CIP process, we'll update you with the new debt numbers. But also for the external agency, Ms. Ferguson is going through with her committee to review all applications. If you recall, we started a new process for external agencies, and we'll be presenting those to you in the coming briefings. Total new expenditure requests, we're looking at 31,734,666. This leaves a preliminary balancing deficit of 18,901,666. So I'd like to invite Ms. Turner again for some closing remarks.
Mr. Kaseki. So as we begin to close this briefing, again, we want to note a couple of things. Economic uncertainty at the federal and state level is a real thing. Moderate, and in some cases, less than moderate growth in our revenue sources is an issue. Again, while not impacting the FY 2027 budget, the meals tax sunset adds to future uncertainty as well. Programmatic expectations will need to be adjusted from the standpoint of current service levels and funding new priorities. We do have a lot of work to do with these numbers. They will change. We will work toward balancing the budget. As I stated, this is before we have scrubbed the budget. But as you know, I've stated in meeting with each of you, the delta is pretty big. The delta.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. So I'd like to close it off with the fiscal year 27 budget timeline. So as you know, we started off with the budget retreat on November 8th, and we're currently at our first briefing today. So we have 4 more briefings, which includes the proposed budget. And we'll go over our capital improvement program. We'll also look at expenditure highlights, such as some of the requests and some of the strategies that we're using to balance the budget to ensure that is manageable and sustainable. Additionally, we have 2 community meetings for all the community members that would like to have some comments, questions, or concerns. April 9th and April 16th, we'll announce those locations in the coming briefings as well. We also have a public hearing on proposed budget and tax rates on April 23rd. And we'll have a budget study on May 4th before we adopt the budget on May 11th. So with that, I'd like to invite you to ask any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Turner and Mr. Kaseki, for that overview. I'll turn to council for questions. Mr. Volleson.
Mr. Kaseki, when it comes to our personal property tax, if we increase that 1 cent, about how much does that give us in additional revenue towards our
I'll have to get back to you on that. I think we did present it on November 8th, but I'll get back to you on that one.
About 1.2 million.
So looking at that delta,
The personal property tax may be a little less, the real estate.
no, I meant the real estate. Did I say personal?
Oh, real estate,
yeah.
okay.
Sorry, yes, I meant real estate. I apologize.
Yeah, 1 cent,
1 cent.
it's about 1.1 million.
So to look at what is roughly 19 million, that would mean going up on our taxes by 19 cents. So I just want to point that out when we're having all these discussions about budgets, because it's not a small amount of money. And we're trying to do what we can to make sure that we're serving all the needs of this city. So thank you.
Questions? Mr. Hagan, sorry, I'll come back to you.
I had a question specifically about the the prepared food and beverage tax delinquent. Why exactly are you all believing that we're going to spend about, or we're going to receive about $3 million less? Is it because of the policy of paying early, or that we had put in, or?
Yeah, there are a couple of factors. As I mentioned, that delinquency have been unpredictable,
Okay.
especially in the last 3 years.
Mhm.
Post-COVID, delinquent taxes for all taxes, they actually increased significantly, which we benefited from. But however, as inflation starts to decrease and residents begin to pay on time, and to take into account our system implementation after having discussions with our treasurer, we changed our policy on when we account for delinquencies. But most of it is because it's been unpredictable. So as I mentioned, fiscal year 23, we collected over 4 million in prepared food and beverage. However, that decreased to 1.8. And there's usually a correlation in our, especially prepared food and beverage and transient occupancy in both current and delinquent. If you look at the current, whenever delinquency is up, current is usually down. And whenever current is up, delinquency usually tanks. So we've been looking at those assumptions. We have more work to do, but that is the first pass when we looked at it, that delinquency have been really unpredictable, and we're going back to normalcy, and we have to be conservative in how we approach it.
Thank you.
When will the online form for council members to submit their questions be online?
The email's open.
Yeah, the email is open now.
Oh, it's open.
Yeah, the email's open.
And is the schedule for that the same as last year, where we get it to you?
Yep.
by...
We give it to us by I think
Every
it's
so
Wednesday.
if you submit your questions Monday or Tuesday, we get it to you end of day Wednesday, and anything after that Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, we'll give it to you Monday the following week by 5 o'clock.
What is that email again? That
Uh,
we send
we'll-
those to?
Yeah,
Will you
we'll
send
email
to
it to
us?
you.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Turner and Mr. Kaseki, I did have one follow-up question on the on page 12 of the compensation package. I know that we've been evaluating our vacancies and working to reclassify some of these and even maybe reduce. But it's important that some vacancies we'd like to fill. So I understand that we want to carry over the funds and increase those so they're competitive in the job market.
That's correct. So there are a couple things. So as you know, we're also right now doing a class and compensation study. Some of our positions have been woefully understaffed because of the salaries that we offer. So that's part of it. The other piece is, you know, as Mr. Kaseki mentioned, when I first started, we had about $6.5 million of lapse or vacancy savings to balance the budget. Now that practice in and of itself is, you know, it's best practice, but it's the amount that we had. So typically for a budget our size, around 2%, not 2%, around 2 million would be more feasible. And so what that has done is about, you know, I think it's 6 million is about 115 positions essentially. So we average about, for years, for the last 3 to 4 years, we've averaged a vacancy of about 220 positions. But of that, really, 115 of those have been used to balance the budget. So that money has really been spent. So, you know, we've done a good job of trying to move the organization forward. But if you remember, we also spent it on both sides. So we've done a really good job this year of monitoring our overtime and our temp staff, and that has been going well. But we need to make some significant changes still.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kaseki. All right, we'll move on to our last briefing. Park Roanoke and city-owned parking facilities update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite Mr. Brian Mann up, and he's going to give a briefing on the evolution of our parking infrastructure.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Today, I'd like to begin by highlighting several key goals that have been met or actively been advanced over the past several years since I took over leadership of Park Roanoke. These efforts are focused on improving accessibility, safety, cleanliness, and the overall experience of downtown parking for our residences, our businesses, and our visitors. First, we addressed a long-standing operational challenge by transitioning to a new parking management company. The previous operator was underperforming in several critical areas, and it was clear that a change was necessary. Through a competitive process, the city selected a new partner with a strong track record in customer service, operational performance, and financial accountability. The transition has already improved drastically oversight, reporting, and day-to-day responsiveness across the system. Second, we have made significant progress in improving the cleanliness and condition of our parking facilities. This includes millions of dollars in capital investment to preserve and enhance city-owned assets. Surface parking lots were paved to improve safety and accessibility, and several parking garages received full interior repainting. Our art installation at Walk Down Henry Street at the completely renovated and newly renamed David Ramey lot was a true collaboration with the Gainsborough neighborhood and has received a tremendous positive response from the community. The project was funded largely in part by donations from our current parking management company, as their commitment to local neighborhoods has been realized. We have created the SIP program, which is the Service Industry Parking Program. For those people who work downtown, there's a 50% reduced parking fee in the parking structures for those who are either in the service or merchant industry downtown. We additionally took on the task of rewriting city code for the purpose of eliminating the barriers of entry to on-street parking for persons with disabilities by making every on-street space a handicap space. These improvements, along with our brand new elevator installation at Center in the Square, extend the life of our facilities, improve visibility and user comfort, and reinforce the city's commitment to maintaining high-quality public infrastructure and community engagement. Third, we implemented private security across all city parking garages and lots. Safety is a top priority, and this step represents a major enhancement to our parking program. In addition, we are currently in an RFP process to more than double our existing security staffing levels. The expansion will increase on-site presence and add marked security patrol vehicles dedicated to actively patrolling garages and surface lots. These measures are designed to improve visibility, deter unwanted activity, and provide a safer environment for everyone who uses our downtown parking system. Fourth, we continued modernizing our parking operations through the transition to gateless parking. As cities modernize their transportation infrastructure, gateless parking systems are emerging as a smarter, more efficient alternative to traditional gated facilities. This transition leverages license plate recognition and digital payments to reduce congestion, improve traffic flow, and enhance the overall user experience for residents and visitors. Adopting gateless parking positions our city to increase operational efficiency while supporting broader goals of accessibility, sustainability, and innovation. Finally, we are approaching an important milestone with the upcoming results of the comprehensive parking study. This study will deliver data-driven recommendations aimed at making downtown parking more accessible and more affordable, while supporting economic vitality and long-term planning goals. Just this week alone, during one of our economic meetings with our parking study partners and the community stakeholders, we were able to create a path forward that will change parking downtown by making it more accessible and less expensive, which will in turn promote economic vitality in the downtown business district. Mayor, we're very excited to present to you and council, hopefully by the end of the summer, the results from this parking study. Also, it is very important to highlight that all of this was accomplished with zero impact to the city budget. I think after today's meeting, we need to stress that. All of this was done without any impact to the city budget or the general fund in any way. Park Roanoke is an enterprise account. We don't receive any funding from the city budget. We generate all of our own revenue, we cover all of our own expenses, and we maintain and service all of our own debt load. This is something that City Council should be proud about, to having such a vital and vibrant and fiscally sound parking division. At this time, I'm going to invite up our Metropolis folks that are here with us today to the podium. So if you guys would please come on up. We have several people here with the municipal and governmental divisions today. local leaders throughout the, will give you the presentation today. First, I'd like to introduce Alex Curtis, Senior Management and Government Relations at Metropolis. We have John Kemp, who's a regional manager at Annapolis, Maryland, also with Metropolis. And of course, we have our local stars, both of which were born and raised here, have families here, and were both graduates of Roanoke College. And that's Scott Kitts, our Senior Operations Manager, and that's Jamie Cook, our Park Roanoke Operations Manager. So they're going to lead you through this gateless presentation today.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Mann. Welcome, Mr. Kitts.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and members of the City Council, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. It's a pleasure to share the significant progress Park Roanoke has made transforming the parking experience in downtown Roanoke. The last time Park Roanoke was here, we stood before you in December of 2024 when we were honored to be recognized by this body for our work in revitalizing downtown parking. So today, we're excited to show you how we have built upon that foundation, take our services to the next level. As we look toward the future, Park Roanoke's goal remains the same: to implement services and technology that make our downtown more accessible, efficient, and welcoming. A major milestone in this journey occurred in May of 2024 when our former company, SP Plus, was acquired by Metropolis, creating the largest parking operator in North America. This expansion grew our portfolio to over 4,500 locations, including new sites in the surrounding area. This scale provides an even more robust support system and a deeper pool of resources for our local Roanoke operations. Gateless technology. So you may recall that in July of 2023, we introduced the gateless concept to City Council, largely in response to your concerns regarding equipment malfunctions that cause public inconvenience. We officially rolled out that technology at Center in the Square in May of 2024. Over the following year, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. However, we continue to face equipment issues at our other gated garages. While we initially planned to expand the existing gateless system, the acquisition by Metropolis changed the landscape. Original tech was no longer going to be supported. Fortunately, this allowed us to pivot to an even more advanced technology, which we successfully implemented across Center in the Square and our remaining 6 garages last month. So what exactly is vision technology? It's a proprietary software and computer vision system that enables a completely checkout-free experience for customers. By using precision timestamping at both entry and exit points, the system ensures valid payment matching without the need for physical barriers such as gates. Drivers simply complete a one-time sign-up via QR codes in the garages or through an app. The ultimate result, optimized traffic flow and significantly reduce entry and exit times. So how does it work? We wanted to make the process as simple as possible. It's a straightforward 3-step process. Step 1 is simply just drive in. The parking session begins automatically the moment you enter. Step 2, for the first visit, drivers scan a QR code or use the app. They enter their license plate and payment information. This is a one-time setup. As long as you have a valid payment method on file, you never have to sign up ever again. Step 3, drive out. When the vehicle leaves, the session is automatically charged. The customer receives a text message with their receipt immediately after exiting. So no lines, no windows to roll down, and no lost tickets. So as of today, the community response has been fantastic. We already have over 11,000 registered members in the Roanoke area who can now breeze in and out of our garages without lifting a finger. Additionally, we have successfully transitioned 91% of our monthly parkers to the new platform, which is no easy feat. Most importantly, we are listening. Since implementation last month, we have received nearly 1,400 customer surveys, and I'm proud to share that our service score stands at 89%. While we are pushing towards a digital future, we understand that one size does not fit all. For those who prefer not to use a mobile device, we have maintained flexibility through physical pay stations. These stations accept cash, credit, and are currently available at the Center in the Square garage, with rollouts to the remaining garages in the coming few weeks. We do remind patrons that while the kiosk is always an option, it requires manual action for every session, whereas the new technology provides a seamless, hands-free experience every single time. Finally, we understand that with new technology comes a responsibility for privacy and data protection. To address this important topic, I'd like to introduce Alex, who will speak to our rigorous data security protocols and address any concerns regarding privacy.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, City Manager, and Attorney. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about how Metropolis respects and protects consumer data. That first starts off with collecting only the stuff that we need to have the transaction. That includes just your phone number, the license plate, and your transaction details, which are usually a credit card. That's all we need to have that transaction, and that's really all we collect. When we talk about protection and compliant commitments, all the information that we collect is stored in the cloud on servers in the United States. When we talk about de-identifying information, that's generally when we talk about providing reports, analytics, and things like that to our clients, and that information is de-identified from our consumers so that they can see trends about parking data and information like that, but user information is not contained in those types of reports. We do comply with federal and state law. I will note our privacy policy is built on California state law, which is one of the most rigorous and strenuous tech policies. And so Virginia isn't quite as strenuous as California's. And so we tried to stick with the most difficult one to comply with and stick with that. With that, we are also SOC 2 compliant. SOC is a systems and operations management compliance protocol. It's a standard that we live up to, and then we have third-party auditors audit those details to make sure that we're compliant. So that includes security tests, how we store financial information, and all that rest. That's an industry standard that we comply with. Additionally, consumers are always able to opt out of collection of information and always able to delete their accounts. That's simple to do in the app. And I believe that very soon that's actually going to be located also on Park Roanoke's website. And then lastly, we don't sell or monetize data, period. With that, I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And that concludes our presentation today. More than happy to answer any questions the dais might have for us.
Man, questions from Council, Ms. Powers?
So when you were talking about your SOC 2 type report, do you provide that information to our city technology department so that they can review it and
yes, we
know
have
that
access
it meets all the
to,
standards?
Yeah, we had to sign an NDA, obviously, to get into that access, into that website, but we have complete access to that, and we are able to review all of the files that keep them up to date and that are audited through state and federal levels.
And did you say that you can opt out on the app?
Yes, you can opt out of the data.
What is that?
So there's a link on the app where you can go to, and it just opt out of your data. That means you can opt out of wanting to share any information with Metropolis, period. You can totally opt out of it. And again, we have a completely dataless option, which is the T2 machines, which are the cash or the credit card machines that'll be at all. We have them sitting in our office. We're just waiting to get the permits done so we can install them in the rest of the garages. So if you really don't want to do any of that after opting out and not want to do that, your dataless and cashless, option is just go to the T2 machine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question about the T2 machine and how because you guys are using license plate data when you leave the garage. So what's to prevent somebody from, coming into the garage, going and paying, and then, staying for an extra hour? How does that dealt with?
I'm gonna have to. That's a little more technical than I know.
Yeah.
Invite Scott up for that.
Are you referring to the transaction? If you do a transaction on a
Yeah, like let's say if I went and parked in center in the square, and I'm not the most honest person in Roanoke, and I say, okay, I'm going to go pay for my parking and only pay for like an hour, and I stay longer. If you use the gateless system, obviously the picture tells you when you went in and went out of the garage.
Yes, sir.
When you're using the pay one, I could say, hey, I want to do an hour and actually stay for longer. So what is the consequence, or how does that get remedied?
So we would cross-reference the initial timestamp whenever you came in. So we would see that the license plate came in. Then we would take a report from the T2 machine and find the two license plates, match them up. And then if that car is still there when it shouldn't be there, then based off of how long the car has been there past the paid time, is we will issue a ticket for non-payment.
Okay. Just want to make sure that nobody else found that loophole. And
No, that's.
Well, thank you, Councilman Paulson. I appreciate that. Now that the entire Roanoke knows how to game the system here, so just kidding.
Other questions? Mr. Hagan?
So I'm looking on Metropolis's your personal or privacy policy page on your all's website. It mentions that you all can collect biometric data. Do you all do that here in Roanoke, and particularly with facial recognition?
Yeah, I'll answer the second part of that, and then I'll have my colleague answer. The facial recognition is flock cameras.
Okay.
And people are conflating that between what we have with license plate recognition. It's totally different. We do not have flock cameras. Those are the ones that do facial recognition and do the breadcrumb trail and all those types of track your behavior. We don't have those cameras. But we have LPR cam, which is just basically all they do is pick up your license plate.
Okay.
And the first part, my colleague.
Yeah.
I'll make a little clarification. We use computer vision to check your license plate. We're not doing enforcement in the state of Virginia, so we don't use LPRs per se. What I would say is that we don't do any facial recognition for our parking technology.
Okay. And follow up, why is it an opt-out system instead of an opt-in? Like you would opt in into providing your data?
When you make any kinds of transaction, you're paying for parking, you're opting in to pay for parking. And so
generally speaking, most people think that when they're paying for parking, they're not opting in to have their data to a company. At least I know every transaction I've ever made. I don't think that that's the first thing that pops in my mind.
in most modern parking, actually, if you take a walk around the city a bit, whether you're paying for public or private parking, actually, in most cases, even if it's cash, you have to put in your license plate. And so that's just kind of a standard practice across the industry. Even if you're on city parking that you have to pay for, you actually have to put in your license plate so that they know when, what vehicle parked there and what time to timestamp that vehicle. So in general, when you make a transaction, you're opting into providing the details that you provided to have that transaction. Just like if you were to go to a coffee shop, let's say, and made a transaction, you're opting in to pay for that transaction. And so if you'd like to have that.
That's probably a much more larger philosophical discussion about law and data and everything.
If I could just add to that, and with our city attorney, so the license plates are public knowledge in the state of Virginia. Just to clarify that, they're not private information. I believe I'm correct in saying that, Mr. City Attorney.
The license plates are, but the average person would need to get it from have a reason to get it from.
Right.
But yes.
So again, if people don't want to opt in, they can easily go to the T2 machine, use the cash option, use a credit card option, and they don't ever have to share their data with our company.
Follow up on your question about the biometrics.
Yeah.
What's to prevent you from using biometrics in the future without updating the policy? Like, so if I sign on to your policy now, yeah, you don't have facial recognition currently, but at some point you may, in which case you're now already have the ability to take my facial recognition because we've had to sign on to that now before you even use it.
So today with parking, the camera as you drive in, the vision technology scans your license plate. It doesn't scan people in the car. It just takes a picture of the back of your vehicle. If for some reason that were to change, people are given the opportunity to opt out or even delete their account.
My question is, you guys are already today, as your privacy part of your privacy, is that you can take my facial recognition. If you started to do that in the future, you would be able to do that. And that to me is not very safe. I mean, to be able to get biometric data, yes, right now you currently don't do that. That doesn't mean that a newer technology in the future is not going to have the ability to see a face in that picture. And once that face is in that picture, that data, as Mr. Hagan just said, is now yours.
Can I speak to this? Sure. So The biometric is referring to a different line of like our business. So we also offer a security service as well, and that's what the biometric is like used for. So that is not a technology that we're currently using. Like to say, we're not contracted to use that. That's not anywhere in our scope of work that we're supposed to be doing. So we're technically not even allowed to even do that. It's just a blanket agreement that is set across every state, every location that we have. Because we have 4,500 locations to have a like a privacy or an opt-in. It would be a laundry list of things that we would have to change for each location. I think it's just a blanket privacy that we would have everyone sign off of. But we technically can't not do that because that's not part of the scope of our work.
That does not make me feel any better. Because just because it doesn't happen now does not mean it will not happen in the future. And if there is a way to do something, a privacy, I know you guys have 4,500, that's great, you're the largest in this country, but as a person who represents the people of Roanoke, and I personally don't want you to be able to have the ability to take my biometrics now or ever.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Volson. I appreciate the comment. We could definitely look with the city attorney's help to amend any contract we have, possibly with Metropolis, to eliminate the possibility of using facial recognition, especially if it's a directive from city council and the city manager. I will absolutely look down. Again, that wasn't ever our intent.
I understand.
We were challenged by council to stop getting stuck at the gates.
Yeah.
And the gateless was our solution. And so far, 89% of the people that have used it, according to the survey at the end of the experience, speak favorably of it and highly of it. And our monthly parkers, which is 93 or 4% of our overall budget, those users are absolutely enamored because they are in and out fast, quick, and they absolutely love the system. But I can follow up with the city manager and follow up with the city attorneys and follow up with my Metropolis colleagues and look at what amending that language might look like.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that you guys are doing a bad job or anything like that. What I think you guys have done an amazing job, and I love the gateless system because God knows it took forever to get out of the center and the square before. I just want to make sure that when we're doing these data agreements that we have our citizens' minds and
Absolutely. Point well taken, and we will discuss it further for sure. And we will all follow up with the city manager and ask to brief you if and that is necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. When it comes to the ratings and the reviews from citizens that are using it, you said it's 89% that
Yes, sir.
think positively of it.
Yes.
But what, if you all know, what are the comments or the concerns of the remainder who have not, who don't fall in that 89%?
Absolutely. We knew that question was coming, and I can answer. No, I can take it.
Gotta ask it.
So the other 11% want free parking.
Oh, okay.
Plain and simple. I don't know if you've read any social media posts lately, but so does everybody else in Roanoke. But as I shared with you, we're an enterprise fund, and we don't receive any money from the city. Therefore, when there's no such thing as free parking, if we made free parking everywhere, who would pay for it? Then I'd be coming back to you looking for a subsidy. And if you happen to see our shortfall in the budget, I'm not sure how we could possibly do that when when millions of dollars go into the parking fund on over a 5-year period to invest into capital improvements. It would be a drastic stretch.
No, I agree. And I think that, in a perfect world, that is something that we have. And that's something I would love to entertain or talk about when the time economically in our city is appropriate, right? But we have to think about logistical challenges like how do you keep spaces available and moving? How do you prevent people from parking in one space all day
Yes.
and taking up that one space? And then are we potentially creating unforeseen issues trying to address free parking, right? So, because the availability of parking for me is also more of a concern that I've heard from citizens than the cost. It's the availability of it. So we make it free, we just worsen that ongoing problem.
Two quick answers for you, Councilman Nash. Number one, we're in the ends of this parking study, and if I wish I could share a preliminary what I want to share, and you're going to be very satisfied with our overall game plan. And I don't want to do it too early, but you're going to be very satisfied with what we're going to present. And second, for us, it is really the battle of private versus public. So no matter what we do, we are always going to face an issue of the 27 privately owned surface lots downtown that are free market driven that also use dynamic pricing. That means they can change the rate supply and demand. Our rates always remain consistent and flat. Our max overnight rate is $8. It hasn't changed. I haven't raised parking rates in almost 5 years. So these are the things that we face, but we are looking at a program that I think everybody's going to be really, really happy with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, I personally miss the community building exercises that result from people being backed up in the garages.
Thank you, Mayor. I know you were part of that.
You get out of your car, you get to know each other, you help each other pay. You get frantic calls from me.
I'll miss the 11 p.m. text messages from you, Mayor, you know.
I know, but thank you all for your great work on this, and thank you for always being responsive.
Absolutely.
Not only to citizens who come into the office or call or have concerns, but when council members are frantic, trying to help somebody out or themselves out. We appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I believe that concludes all of our briefings today. So we're going to move to items recommended for action. Item A is the acceptance and appropriation of additional Virginia Department of Transportation revenue sharing funding for downtown, the First Street Southwest Drainage Improvement Project. We have one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second on the ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Powers.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of additional Virginia Department of Transportation revenue sharing funding for the downtown First Street Southwest Drainage Improvement Project, authorizing the city or designee to execute and file appropriate documents to obtain such funds as detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you.
No comments.
Madam Manager, I was going to make up a new
No
title
comments on
for you.
this.
Thank you. All right, any discussion by council? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item B is the acceptance and appropriation of the 2026 through 2028 Operation Ceasefire Grant. We have one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Thank you, Council Members Volleson and Hagan. And Madam Clerk, if you would please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of the 2026 through 2028 Operation Ceasefire Grant made to the City of Roanoke by the Commonwealth of Virginia, Department of Criminal Justice Services, authorizing execution of any required documents on behalf of the city, appropriating funds detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, anything to add?
I do, thank you. This grant provides significant state support for evidence-based violence reduction strategies through Operation Ceasefire with no cost to the city.
All right, any questions from council?
I guess I just have one. Do we know if Attorney General Jones is going to continue this?
I don't know.
Okay, that might be something worthwhile.
Yeah,
figuring
we
out.
can certainly check.
Yeah.
I will say historically, though it's been called something different, we've had consistent support from our previous Attorney Generals Herring and Miaris, so I'm hopeful that we'll continue. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers. Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item C is the acquisition of real property rights needed to continue the mass grading plan for Tract 8. This is out in Blue Hills Industrial Park. There is one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
The ordinance.
Second.
Thank you, council members Hagan and Volleson. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance providing for the acquisition of real property rights needed for the development of city-owned property bearing Roanoke official tax map numbers 7320101 and 7320102, located at the Roanoke Center for Industry and Technology, authorizing city staff to acquire such property rights by negotiation for the city, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute appropriate acquisition documents, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Turner, anything to add?
Yes, thank you. This authorization enables continued site preparation for a future manufacturing prospect at Track 8 and secures the required stormwater easement through a collaborative process with the neighboring property owner. Approval keeps the economic development project on schedule.
All right, any questions or discussion by council? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Mayor, on, related to track 8, I was wondering if we had any information on, I think there was, so there's a tiny little bit of the Reed Mountain Greenway is over in Blue Hills. And I think that there is a Greenway concept plan that would have included the connection of the Reedway, Greenway up through. The idea, as I understand it, was to get connectivity to the Reed Mountain Preserve, which is just a parcel or two over. And some of the neighbors for years have been asking about in Track 8, is there any ability to preserve any green space? And I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of have our cake and eat it too, with keeping that obviously as a designated industrial manufacturing spot, but also if there's an opportunity to connect it to the greenways to create, like, save some of the space. I just wanted to ask if that's on the city manager's radar, or if we could get some more information back about kind of where staff is, or how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that and respond to it. So Mr. Nelson is here, so.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for that? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Before we move to items D and E, and then there's a subsequent item under 8, I'm going to ask two council members, Vice Mayor McGuire and Councilwoman Sanchez Jones. They're going to have two different conflict of interest statements to read for the record.
Mayor? I, Stephen Terry McGuire, Vice Mayor of Roanoke City Council, state that I have a personal interest in agenda item 7.1D, adoption of the 7th amended school funding policy, and item 7.1E, reappropriation of FY25 true-up funds and capital fund balance for Roanoke City Public Schools, as these items involve funding of the school board of the city of Roanoke, and because I am an employee of the school board of the city of Roanoke. Therefore, in accordance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112, I will refrain from participation in these matters. I ask that the clerk accept this statement and ask that it be made a part of the minutes of this meeting on this 20th day of January 2026. And I, Stephen Terry McGuire, Vice Mayor of Roanoke City Council, state that I have a personal interest in agenda item 8.1, a report of the Roanoke City School Board requesting appropriation of funds for various educational programs, and a report of the city manager recommending that City Council concur in the request, as this item involves funding of the school board of the city of Roanoke, and because I am an employee of the school board of the city of Roanoke. Therefore, in accordance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112, I will refrain from participation in this matter. I ask that the clerk accept this statement and ask that it be made a part of the minutes of this meeting on this 20th day of January 2026.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilwoman Sanchez Jones.
I, Vivian Sanchez Jones, a member of Roanoke City Council, state that I have a personal interest in agenda item 7.1D, adoption of the 7th amended school funding policy, and item 7.1E, reappropriation of FY25 true-up funds and capital fund balance for Roanoke City Public Schools, as these items involve funding of the school board of the city of Roanoke, and because I am an employee of the school board of the city of Roanoke. Therefore, in accordance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112, I will refrain from participation in these matters. I ask that the clerk accept this statement and ask that it be made part of the minutes of this meeting. Witness the following signature made us on this day of the 20th of January 2026. I, Vivian Sanchez Jones, a member of Roanoke City Council, state that I have a personal interest in agenda item 8.1, a report of the Roanoke City School Board requesting appropriation of funds for various educational programs, and a report of the city manager recommending that city council concur in the request. As these items involve funding of the school board of the city of Roanoke, and because I am an employee of the school board of the city of Roanoke, therefore, in accordance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112, I will refrain from participation in this matter. And I ask the clerk accept this statement and ask that it be made part of the minutes of this meeting. Thank you.
Item D is the adoption of the seventh amended school funding policy, and there's one measure, a resolution, and I'll entertain a motion and second on the resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Council members Nash and Volleson. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution amending the school funding policy for funding the city's school division dated May 9th, 2011, and as amended, that provides funding for the Roanoke City Public Schools to clarify certain adjustments to the amount provided to the Roanoke City Public Schools and adopting the seventh amended school funding policy.
I believe we have a speaker signed up for this, Dr. White. Is that correct? Thank you for your patience. Welcome.
Thank you. And I'll try my best to stay within the time limit, but I beg your forgiveness if I go over a little bit. So good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, and members of City Council. I'm coming to you to ask that you reconsider the proposed change to the school's funding policy. As you know, our school board members and I have always believed in being transparent with our community and keeping our students at the center of every decision that we make. In that spirit, I come before you today, not only as superintendent, but also as a teacher and as a community member to ask you to reject the proposed funding policy. This proposal will have a devastating impact on public education in Roanoke City. Before I go further, I'd like to tell you a little story about Sophia as an example of some of the services that we provide to our students. Again, it's just a small example, but I think it gives you some broader context of school being more than school. Again, I've changed her name and her parents' names to protect her privacy, but Sophia is a high school student who receives English learner services as well as special education services. And her family moved to Roanoke after relocating from another part of Virginia when both of her parents lost their jobs. She has two brothers, one in elementary school and one in middle school. And when they arrived, they were referred to our Community Empowerment Center. And Sophia's parents came to the center to enroll their children. We provided Sophia and her brothers with school supplies and toiletries and connected her parents with employment services. Again, because school is more than school. So Sophia was able to receive and has been able to receive special education services and needed accommodations to support her needs by dedicated teachers and one-to-one aides. And our student support specialists help ensure Sophia and her brothers have the essentials they need and to get to school on time. So none of this happens by accident. Our staff members are able to do this work because of solid funding and strong leadership and the support of our central office teams who assist teachers and principals, monitor data, and ensure that our schools are staffed and supported. Just last week, for instance, our Westside Elementary School team and community lost a staff member and a student within the same week of one another, and we immediately rallied around them by providing additional social workers and counselors and sending central office staff to provide everything from classroom coverage to hugs, not because of compliance, but because it was the right thing to do. And right now, we are fortunate to have the funding and staff to provide that level of support. Now, this level of support is possible because our city made a commitment to public education. In 2012, the city adopted a 40% school funding policy to provide stability and allow us to focus on teaching and learning rather than constant budget uncertainty. As you know, our CPS cannot generate our own revenue. Is it okay if I continue? We cannot generate our own revenue. However, we have been responsible stewards of taxpayer funds, including one-time pandemic relief funds entrusted to us. We did open Day Tech, as you know, to double our CTE seat capacity to meet city and workforce needs, and opened the Community Empowerment Center where we've already serviced over 1,000 families, none of which would have been possible without centralizing our administration. We are doing exactly what we said we would do, and we're doing it responsibly. The needs of our students in Roanoke City Public Schools are different than those in more rural and suburban communities. The level and intensity of services our students need, just like in Sophia's situation, are real and they are not optional. When we are doing our work in this way, students like Sophia receive the services they need. And it may look seamless, but let me be clear about the stakes. If the funding formula of 34% of growth is approved, this proposal has the potential to reduce the city's investment in public education by $35 million over the next 5 years. That is not a small adjustment. That is a fundamental shift, and our students and our teachers and our community will feel it. And we are sensitive to the fact that the city has a significant financial need at this time, that there are financial needs that the city has to try to meet. But our students, and I would just, as a reminder, and as the face of RCPS, I just have to remind us all that our students deserve high-quality instruction and small class sizes, and our teachers and principals who go above and beyond the call of duty every day to serve our students deserve our collective investment in public education. This will have a ripple effect for generations. Each year that funding is reduced compounds the impact. Already, keeping our budget flat this year has resulted in a $6.7 million cut, and that $6.7 million that our schools and our children will never get back. So I'm asking you to reconsider this change, replace the $6.7 million already lost, and maintain the 40% funding policy. I also ask that you take time to receive feedback from the community, including the specific detailed concerns that our school board shared in their letter to you this morning. I want to thank our school board, our teachers, staff, PTA, and Education Association, and so many community members who have stood up for our children. I am proud to lock arms and stand with them, and I'm asking you, as I did at convocation, for you guys to also, for this council, to continue standing with us as well. Many of us attended the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast yesterday, where we were reminded that policy must be guided by conscience. Dr. King said cowardice asked the question, is it safe? Expediency asked the question, is it politic? Vanity asked the question, is it popular? But conscience asked the question, is it right? And he reminded us that there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular because it is right. And this is a critical moment. It's a pivotal moment. And I hope that we will all be on the right side of history when it comes to supporting our students, parents, teachers, and schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. White. Right. Were there any other speakers for this particular?
No
Okay.
other speakers.
All right, this is open for discussion from council. Questions, comments? Mr. Volleson.
I just have some comments before this. Look, we've gone through a process over this last year of finding a lot of financial problems. And, you know, it's incumbent on us as city council to look at the city as a whole. You know, we have provided a percentage under this funding formula by which we believe our tax revenue will grow, right? We believe it'll be what it was today. It's not our goal here to deprive children of an education, but to provide what we can within our means. It's hugely unfortunate. I don't like to be in this situation. I don't think anybody on this dais likes to be in this situation. But we have to do, but what we have to do from here forward is to work together creatively to make sure that we get the most out of the funds that we have and that we can be responsive to all of our citizens and the services that they need.
Powers.
So I want to just let you know that this has been my 44 years with the city of Roanoke. And I can tell you that I've never been in this situation when I was the manager with the city. I'm a product of public schools. My children went to public schools, and this is hard. But here's something I have to tell you. We have also made a commitment to our citizens and our taxpayers. When I left the treasurer's office September the 30th of 2024, we had over 600 people, 600 citizens making monthly payments on their real estate taxes so that they would not be delinquent, so that they could keep ahead. And we just got news this week that Yokohama and Salem is going to be laying off 400 people. These people probably some live right here in the city of Roanoke. We just heard Councilman Volleson earlier say that to make up for our $18.9 million budget gap right now, we would have to raise real estate taxes 19 cents. That would take us to $1.41. We'd be the highest in this area. That didn't even include 40%. We'd have to raise real estate taxes higher. We'd maybe even have to raise personal property taxes. And I'm here to tell you, our citizens cannot afford that. This is so heartbreaking to have to go through this, but I think it's a time where we're all going to have to sit down together. And I agree, just like I was at that breakfast yesterday too. And we need to sit down at the table collectively, professionally, and figure out how we dig ourselves out of this hole, that in the future years, we can get back to giving more. And yes, our teachers are the greatest that we've ever had. They do deserve, but our citizens and our employees here at the City of Roanoke deserve too. I remember many years back when city employees did not take a raise so that we continue to give to our CPS. And they received raises when city employees on this side did not. And I know that because my husband spent 39 years with the city school system. And so I know the sacrifices that we made on this side. So this is hard times. I get it. I respect every single one of you sitting out there. Wholeheartedly do I respect you. But please know that all of us sitting up here, this is not easy.
Mr. Nash.
You know, I wasn't going to say anything, because what is there to say that's not already been said? It's never easy when we're, making these type of decisions. And when Evelyn was speaking, I was reminded of a quote about hard times and how hard times don't last. Hard times come, but they don't last. And we're in an extremely hard time, a pivotal time. We are in a reality where Roanoke is on a trajectory of similar localities in Southwest Virginia that are absolutely in shambles. And that's the truth of the matter. That is the truth of the matter. Earlier, we just had the interns here speaking about the libraries. And we think about funding our libraries and keeping them operational and maintaining the services and the programs there. You go to the Melrose Library, it's packed. Thank God for the Melrose Plaza, but before Melrose Plaza, when the library, Melrose Library was still doing what they were doing, they were doing so much work in a food desert. And so to think about a reality where in order to fund debt services, fund other things that the school pays expenses on, and for us to take the burden on and to be looking at realities where we have to cut our entire Parks and Recs budget, which gives so many recreational opportunities to kids that don't have money for AAU sports, that don't have money to go to expensive summer camps or summer programs, to be looking at a reality where in order to do all the things that some would like us to do, we would have to completely annihilate, decimate, and gut our libraries department and still have to talk about increasing taxes in order to do it. That is something that, as the people who are assigned with looking out for the entire city, and the students are citizens too. They're students of Roanoke City Public Schools, but they're also citizens here in the city of Roanoke. And it is our job, my job, to look out for not just them when they're in the schools, but them when they're on the streets, making sure we have a public safety department that can protect them, making sure we have fire and EMS that can respond if their house catches on fire, making sure that we have programming that is helping to keep them out of the streets when they're not in the schools. So we have to be comprehensive. We have to work together and be unified because we're in a hard time. And if we do not unite, if we do not band together in these hard times, every department is making cuts. Everyone is struggling right now. I'm struggling with doing what we're having to do, right? But we have to band together. We have to come together because if we do not, I can show you localities that, like I said earlier, are in shambles, and that is our reality. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mr. Nash.
I hear you all. I have a concern about the long-term viability of this policy, of the proposed policy. I think we're going at like last 50 years of data about public education has indicated that every dollar that we spent, that not necessarily Roanoke, but is spent on education policy, returns about $8 of investment. I think we'll end up paying for this one way or the other. And I can, in good conscience, support that.
Just a couple comments. I think we know the realities. Dr. White's request was to replace the 6.7 million and return to 40%. And the way I figure that, it would be about $11.2 million if we were to restore all of that this year. And we would need to add that to the 18 million I mean, it would be in addition to that we would need to take out of our budget. This is the quandary that we're in. We can vote to raise taxes, and whatever be, I'd like to hear from citizens if they'd like for us to do that. I mean, that's one way that we can support education. If citizens want to tell us that we just need to cut more of our essential services and flatline our employee compensation, then I'd like to hear that from citizens. What we're trying to do, what I've been dedicated to doing through this process, is to continue to prioritize education in the best way that we can during this difficult time, while honoring the priority we have for employee compensation, and also having to reduce departmental budgets across the board because they're not going to be able to do what they want to do. In terms of the long-term viability of this policy, the policy itself states that we will review it on an annual basis, and we can make adjustments on an annual basis, considering all the information that we have. So while the last thing I'll add to, and I think this is part of the greater difficulty of all of this, is that I think for the schools, and there is some fairness to this, so I'm not going to blame anybody, but I think this is accurate. This felt very abrupt, I think, to the schools, this kind of reduction. And a longer runway, as I've heard, would have been helpful. I think there have been attempts in previous years to revisit this policy and to reduce or review those rates, but we have been met with opposition in doing that. And I will acknowledge the school board does not support this policy. So I want to state that publicly. That was the case when we amended it the two previous times. So I appreciate I think we're all trying to be very conscientious in the decisions that we make and very thoughtful. And I commend our school superintendent and our school board for their tenacity and their hard work in expressing to us the realities, just as we've expressed the realities. So I think unless there's further discussion, we can see some people thinking. Going to rush our decision, but
Would just like Mr. Hagan to explain his comment about the long-term viability of this, as he was in all of these conversations previously, has all the same information that we have, and has previously spoke in favor of this policy.
Have I spoken favorably?
In conversations we've had.
I don't recall.
Yes, you do.
all right. I think we'll move on from that.
So those long-term issues that you have, Mr.
Long-term
Hammond?
issues in regards to the fact that we will likely pay for this in the long term by not necessarily this council, but a future council. When we are looking at, what we are spending money on, 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Any further discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Powers. Aye. Mr. Hagan,
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the resolution is adopted.
Excuse me, Mayor Cobb, since there are only 4 members that have voted in favor of it, we'll require a second reading.
Okay, I thought that just applied to the appropriations and not a formula policy.
Well, this is, this is for the ordinance.
This is just the resolution. Is it different for the resolution?
It's only for the ordinance.
Okay.
This is not the ordinance.
My
Okay,
mistake.
so that will apply to both the appropriation ordinances, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we're okay on this one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. All right, the resolution is adopted. Item E is reappropriation of fiscal year 25 true-up funds and capital fund balance for Roanoke City Public Schools. There is one measure in ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion in a second on this budget ordinance.
I'll move the motion. I move the motion.
Thank you, Councilman Powers and Councilman Volleson. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to reappropriate prior year city funding for schools for capital needs for the acquisition and placement of modular classrooms at Patrick Henry High School and William Fleming High School, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2025-2026 school grant fund appropriations and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Thank you. And I will add that this ordinance has been modified or amended since the one that was printed in the agenda. And so I want to read what has been added to this appropriation. And this is at the fourth paragraph. Any unexpended balance of funds appropriated by this ordinance remaining at the end of fiscal year 26 may be used by Roanoke City Public Schools in fiscal year 27 and such later fiscal years as needed, and are appropriated for re-expenditure in such years, provided such funds shall be used for the acquisition and placement of modular classrooms at Patrick Henry High School and William Fleming High School. So I wanted to make sure that that's on the record as well. Okay? Now, this will need 5 votes to pass. If it doesn't pass with 5, then we'll have to have a second reading on February 2nd. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Powers, Mr. Hagan,
Aye.
Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the budget ordinance is adopted. All right, we can call in our colleagues for the next couple of items. Okay. All right, welcome back, Vice Mayor. We are on to item F, execution of an agreement with Virginia Department of Health for continued operation of the Roanoke Health Department. That sounds ominous.
It really does, right?
We have one measure, a resolution, and I need I'll entertain a motion and second on the resolution.
Move the resolution.
Thank you, council members Volleson and Powers. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution authorizing the proper city officials to approve a local government agreement between the City Council for the City of Roanoke, Virginia, and the Virginia Department of Health, and authorizing the city manager or designee to take such actions and execute such documents as may be necessary to provide for the implementation, administration, and enforcement of such agreement.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, anything to add?
No comments, thank you.
Okay. Any questions or discussion by members of council? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sanchez Jones is out. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the resolution is adopted. Now I'll turn to Ms. Turner for comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. I have 4 comments for today. Number 1, we are getting ready to hold a ribbon cutting for the long-awaited Wasena Skate Park and Pump Track. The ribbon cutting will be held on Friday, January 30th at 2 p.m. Number 2, the play area at Williamson Road Library will officially open with a ribbon cutting ceremony on Friday, February 6th, at 10 a.m. The opening will highlight community connectivity and introduce a safe gathering space for families. As a reminder, this project was made possible through the Safer Communities grant. Number 3, Roanoke Parks and Recreation and City Emergency Management Services have collaborated to acquire a peri-weather station for Elmont Park. The on-site weather station monitors real-time conditions and triggers custom alerts to sirens and mobile devices, including automatic all-clear notification, enhancing safety for teams and ensuring smooth operations during events. Staff from both departments recently met with facilities maintenance to determine the optimal location for installation, which is scheduled to occur in the coming weeks. The weather station will be connected to direct power and will not include a solar panel. In addition, Emergency Management has submitted a grant application for a second peri-weather station at River's Edge Park. The addition of the station will further improve safety for all events and athletic activities at the park. And number 4, I'd like to introduce you to our new Public Information Officer, Ms. Janelle Few. You can stand. Janelle has worked as a PIO for the city of Savannah, and she's also served as as a reporter for Savannah News. Press secretary. So we're excited to have her. She started today. Today is her first day.
Welcome.
Those conclude my comments. Thank you.
You. We also have a public matters follow-up. I believe that was distributed. And Ms. Ferguson, are you going to walk us through these?
Yes, I'm going to walk us through.
Thank you.
this. Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of City Council, Ms. Turner. So for your council meeting follow-ups, we have Gateway Access follow-up. Garrett Robinson spoke at the November 17th council meeting about maintaining Greenway access during the construction of Wiley Drive Low Water Bridge. Mr. Campbell shared the following statement, which has been sent to other residents as well. Thank you for reaching out and for your commitment to the Roanoke River Greenway. We agree that this bridge is an important connection, and we understand why maintaining access during construction is a major concern. After a detailed engineering review, we want to be clear, there is no safe or feasible way to keep the Greenway open at this location while the bridge is being replaced. The existing structure must be removed all at once, and the limited right-of-way leaves no room for temporary path. Environmental regulations also require the contractor to work within a cofferdam and keep at least half the river open at all times, which further restricts available space. Any attempt to keep a pedestrian corridor open would put users directly beside heavy construction activity and unstable bridge components. Because of these constraints, we must choose between keeping the current bridge area open or replacing it. Unfortunately, we cannot safely do both. During the anticipated 9-month closure, a signed detour will direct Greenway users to cross the Wasena Bridge, travel through Highland Park, connect with Franklin Road at Walnut, and cross to Reserve to reconnect with Roanoke River Greenway in River's Edge Park. We recognize the importance of transparency. Public review of the design and construction plan will occur in February, once required easements are secured. At that time, the community will be able to see the plans, ask questions, and share feedback. We appreciate your advocacy for the Greenway and look forward to working with the community to deliver a safer, more reliable bridge as efficiently as possible.
I have one question here. Do we know when construction on this bridge is going to start?
We will get back to you.
Okay, and I mainly,
Yeah.
I'm thinking through this
Yeah.
so that, it's one thing to say that when the Wasina Bridge is open,
Oh,
but the Wasina Bridge isn't open yet, and we're not exactly sure. It's projected to be the summer. So it'd be important to know that we might have to have a variety of different detours and not just the one over the Wasina Bridge until the bridge does reopen. So I was more concerned about the timing of when this construction would start and when the bridge would be finished.
we'll follow up with the timeline for you and
Thank
show
you.
how they match up. On to zoning text amendment updates. Anthony Stilova and Owen McGuire requested an update on the study of the adopted zoning reforms. Mr. Hagan submitted as a council member initiative. Ms. O'Brien gave an update to City Council during the 2 p.m. session on December 15th, and the following information comes from her report. Bless you. 3 council member initiatives have been grouped together to streamline the process for the planning department, making efficient use of both staff time and community engagement opportunities. Community meetings at libraries are starting on January 21st, which is tomorrow. Research and drafting have already begun and will continue through the end of this month. A period of public engagement and stakeholder input is underway with a series of community meetings scheduled during the last 2 weeks of January. The research and input will be collected and staff will deliver briefings to City Council and the Planning Commission during February and March. The proposed date for City Council adoption is April 20th, 2026, after which staff will work toward full implementation and communication with residents. More information about the community meetings can be found on the city's web pages, and residents are invited to learn more and provide feedback at roanokeva.gov/projects.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes. Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 2, which is an item from the city attorney, the amendment of Article 2, real estate taxes generally, Code of City of Roanoke, partial exemption of certain real property located in redevelopment or conservation areas or rehabilitation district zoned urban center. I know we heard from Mr. Collins on this as well as Mr. Bratton. Anything you'd like to say, Mr. Collins, in addition?
Nothing to add, Mayor Cobb. Just as Mr. Bratton and I briefed City Council earlier this month on, this is to amend Chapter 32 of the City Code taxation by the Article 2 real estate by the addition of a new partial tax exemption for large-scale development in urban center zone districts located in conservation, rehabilitation, or redevelopment districts.
Thank you very much. All right, we have one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second on the ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
All right, thank you, Council Members Volleson and Hagan. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance adding new Division 5D, partial exemption of certain real property located in redevelopment or conservation areas or rehabilitation district zone urban center. Article 2, real estate taxes generally, of Chapter 32, taxation of the Code of the City of Roanoke, 1979, as amended, which provides for partial real estate tax exemption for new structures and other improvements to real estate located in a redevelopment or conservation area or rehabilitation district upon certain conditions being met, providing for an effective date and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Any discussion by council? Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Aye. Vice Mayor McGuire. Aye. Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye. Mr.
Hagan.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. And thank you again, Mr. Collins and Mr. Bratton, for your work on this. The report of committees, we have a report, and we've already had the conflict of interest statement here, so I'll ask my colleagues to, you can just A report of the Roanoke City School Board requesting appropriation of funds for various educational programs, and a report of the city manager recommending that city council concur in the request. We have one measure, an ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second on the budget ordinance.
The ordinance? Second.
Thank you, council members Volleson and Nash. Again, to avoid a second reading, this will need a 5-0 vote. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Commonwealth federal and private grant for various educational programs, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2025 through 2026 school grant fund appropriations for fiscal year 2026, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Thank you. Any discussion by members of council? All right. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nash?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Powers? Mr. Hagan?
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the budget ordinance is adopted. Comments on certain authorities, boards, committees on which city council serve as liaison. Anybody have any updates? Mr. Nash?
I have one that I would just like to give from the Gun Violence Prevention Commission. Today, we're having a meeting. I'm not at it just because of how this holiday falls with the federal holiday and how it falls on the calendar. The first two meetings they have of the new year, I'll have to miss because of council meetings. However, I wanted to share a report about the 2025 gun violence statistics numbers and where we ended at the year. So in almost in fiscal year, in the year 2024, we had 10 homicides in the city. We finished in 2025 with 9 homicides. So we was able to see a 10% decrease. And then when it comes to overall gun violence incidences, in 2024, we had 35 incidences. 2025, we had 27. So we were able to see a 22.9% decrease. And when it came to the amount of cases of 25 gun violence incidences, police were able to arrest 16. That's a arrest clearance rate of 64%, which is good. And granted, do we want one death because of gun violence? No, right? Our goal in a perfect world, we hope and pray and do the work to have 0. That is our goal. But to see decrease, to see decline, shows strength in a lot of the initiatives that we have taken, but also shows that there's still room for improvement and continued investment in public safety, more modern technologies to help make up for where we lack in people power with our force. So I just wanted to share some of those numbers just so citizens knew we're aware of 2025's gun violence statistics.
Thank you, Councilman Nash. It's good to hear that we're continuing to make progress and it's continuing to trend down. All right. We do have one item under 10, introduction and consideration of ordinances resolutions. This is a walk-on resolution regarding from the Greater Roanoke Transit Company Board that met earlier today regarding Fare Free Transit Equity Day service. So I'll entertain a motion and a second for this resolution.
Move them. Ordinance. Yes.
I like how you made it a conversation.
It
That's
works out
great.
well.
All right. Thank you, Council Members Hagan and Sanchez Jones. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
Oh, that's not it.
Have it?
Don't have it.
All right. Here it is. Thank you, Nick.
We have one.
This is the resolution, right?
Oh, that's Fair Free. We have it. I have it now. A resolution approving and affirming the action taken by the Greater Roanoke Transit Company doing business as Valley Metro to implement Fare Free Transit Equity Day service for Wednesday, February 4th, 2026, and authorizing the city manager to take any necessary action to accomplish such fare.
Thank you. Any discussion by members of council? All right. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor McGuire?
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the resolution is adopted. Any additional inquiries or comments by members of council?
One question.
Ms. Powers?
This would be for our city manager. Could we get Molly, I understand that, that does neighborhood
Yes, Money Hunter.
services, yes. So I've had several requests from, people over there wanting to start a new neighborhood, and they said they don't know much about doing it. They need some help. So I think the person that's trying to organize this is Dwayne Howard. And he's, doesn't know much about it and is requesting some help to start a neighborhood with those citizens over there.
I'll have her reach out to Mr. Howard.
Any other? All right. Then we will be in recess and reconvene for our closed meeting and reconvene for our 7 o'clock session this evening. Thank you all.
Deal with China the other day. The European Union and the South American trading bloc Mercosur finally signed a free trade agreement that has been years in the making. And as President Trump threatens tariffs and more to take Greenland, traditional American allies